Chapter 226. Su Sun, looking at Crown Prince Chu Jiuxing's back, Fei Ren narrowed his eyes and fell into deep thought. It was as if the noise and excitement around him had nothing to do with him. Brother Fei, do you think His Highness Crown Prince exaggerated Su Sun's strength? Song Sherluin couldn't help but ask when he saw Fei Ren's face gradually turn serious. Although Su Sun's strength was not weak, it was rumored that his strength was only on par with Gu Qingmu. Therefore, Fei Ren was not the only one who was surprised by Chu Jiuxing's warning. Even he was a little puzzled. Maybe this guy is really much stronger than Run Jiannan and Gu Qingmu. In the face of Song Sherluin's question, Fei Ren also shook his head and did not jump to conclusions. After all, unlike the other three, although Su Sun was also one of the four great geniuses of the Imperial City, his background and strength were the least known by everyone. There was no other reason. When he first joined the Qingyuan sect, his strength was mediocre, and there was nothing outstanding about him. He was just an ordinary disciple. However, for some reason, in the past few years, Su Sun began to shine. His strength improved by leaps and bounds, crushing all the disciples of the Qingyuan sect. Soon, he became the #1 young disciple of the new generation and the eldest senior brother of the Qingyuan sect. Due to the rapid improvement of his strength and the fact that Su Sun once killed a 7th-level Star Realm criminal wanted by the Imperial Court alone during an adventure, his reputation began to spread outside the Imperial City. At the same time, some storytellers listed him as one of the 4 great geniuses. Brother Song, how much do you know about this Su Sun? Thinking of this, Fei Ren also collected his thoughts and looked at Song Sherluin. A little. In the face of Fei Ren's question, Song Sherluin stretched out his hand and scratched his head awkwardly. I heard that he lost his parents when he was young. He is a homeless orphan and has no talent for cultivation. Even if he was lucky enough to join the Qingyuan sect later and become one of the many disciples of the Qingyuan sect, his performance was mediocre and not considered a genius. And, hearing this, Fei Ren looked doubtful. He knew very well that if Song Sherluin was really like what he said, it was impossible for Song Sherluin to grow so quickly in just a few years and become the top young disciple of the Qingyuan sect. There must be something behind it. And, I don't think so. After pausing for a moment, Song Sherluin shrugged. It was obvious that he didn't know much about Su Sun. That's it. Seeing this scene, Fei Ren's face also froze. Although the other party talked about a few things related to Su Sun, they were all nonsense. There was no useful information at all. For example, Su Sun's strength skyrocketed, and why she became a disciple of the Qingyuan sect was not mentioned at all. All right, I won't make things difficult for you. Looks like you don't know either. Seeing Song Sherluin racking his brains helplessly, Fei Ren immediately waved his hand, indicating that he should drop the matter. After all, no matter what opportunities Su Sun had obtained, it was far from being comparable to the current him. Fei Ren had inquired about Su Sun purely out of curiosity. By the way, Brother Fei, I also heard a rumor. Seeing that Fei Ren stopped asking, Song Sherluin slapped his thigh again, as if he suddenly remembered something. What? Fei Ren turned his gaze and said, It's just a rumor, but I don't know whether it's true or not. I heard that Su Sun seems to have some unknown relationship with the sect master of the Qingyuan sect, Su Tianqing. Some martial artists speculated that the two of them might be. After a pause, Song Sherluin spoke again. Obviously, he was brewing a big rumor. Su Sun, Su Tianqing, although the two have the same surname, it can't be concluded that the two are father and son. In this world, there are many martial artists who belong to the same clan. Moreover, Su Tianqing is the sect master of the Qingyuan sect. As the sect master of the 9 ranks of the great families, it's impossible that no one in the Qingyuan sect knows about it. Facing the mysterious Song Sherluin, Fei Ren shook his head directly. He seemed to have guessed the other party's judgment. To tell you the truth, brother, I think so too. That's why I said it's just a rumor. No one can be sure of its authenticity. However, Su Sun is indeed an orphan that Su Tianqing brought back from the outside. Although Su Tianqing did not personally teach him martial arts, he entrusted an elder of the Qingyuan sect to teach him cultivation methods and martial arts. Su Sun had been silent in the Qingyuan sect for several years before he completely exploded and his strength improved by leaps and bounds. Song Sherluin shrugged and sighed. Obviously, seeing that Fei Ren guessed what he wanted to say, he suddenly felt a little bored. I see. Hearing this, Fei Ren also reached out and touched his chin. Although he did not know much, it was enough. Even if he met Su Sun in the finals, he was still not afraid of the other party. With his current strength, he had the confidence to do so. At the same time, although the battle between Fei Ren and Gu Qingmu had ended, the lively atmosphere near the central square did not reduce at all. Cheers and shouts continued. It was obvious that the other contestants' battles were not over yet. At this moment, they were still anxious. Although the semifinals were not over yet, Fei Ren had successfully advanced to the finals tomorrow. Naturally, he did not stay in the central square and quietly left. I didn't expect to be targeted so quickly. Perhaps it was because of his extraordinary strength and the fact that he had a grade 5 spirit treasure in his hand. But when Fei Ren left the central square, he vaguely felt a few greedy gazes fall on him. They seemed to have other intentions. Although he felt the greedy gazes lingering in the dark, Fei Ren was not afraid. He did not deliberately hide his body. With his current strength, as long as the martial masters did not make a move, the other warriors could not do anything to him, no matter how many of them there were. They would only be courting death. The only way to have a chance of killing Fei Ren was if there were a few 10th level Star Realm martial artists who had come to kill him. Inside the Imperial City, I was wondering who was following me all the way. So it's the Grand Commandant. When he reached the entrance of an alley, Fei Ren suddenly stopped and spoke faintly. Ahem, I didn't expect little friend Fei Ren's vigilance to be so high. As soon as he finished speaking, a man's dry laughter slowly came from behind. Then, Li Mi flashed out from the side, followed by 2 palace experts. At this moment, his face was faintly embarrassed. Originally, he was just testing Fei Ren's strength, but he did not expect to be discovered so quickly. Chapter 227. Lordly, what business do you have with me? After glancing at the 2 Imperial Palace experts beside Li Mi, Fei Ren opened his mouth and said, these 2 experts were only at the 7th level of the Star Realm, so they were no match for Fei Ren. Moreover, Li Mi was the current Grand Commandant, so he had some contact with Fei Ren before. Fei Ren knew that Li Mi didn't have any bad intentions. He wasn't like the other cultivators outside who had come for the green dragon halberd in his hands. Taking a step back, even if Li Mi coveted the grade 5 spirit treasure green dragon halberd, Fei Ren could easily kill Li Mi and the 2 palace experts beside him with his strength and escape unscathed. Even if Chu Tianyang sealed the Imperial City and chased after him, it would be useless. Therefore, it was certain that Li Mi had come here with other plans. It was very likely that he wanted a rope in Fei Ren. After all, Fei Ren had just amazed the world with a single brilliant feat in the competition at the Central Square. He had defeated the number 1 genius of the pavilion of Prince Tong, Gu Qingmu, with a thunderous momentum. It's a small matter. Little friend Fei Ren's strength and talent are extraordinary. His Majesty the Emperor has sent me to express his concern and invite you to the Imperial Palace for a chat. Little friend, with your strength, you are more than qualified to become a consecrator of the Imperial Palace, Li Mi grinned. Seeing that Fei Ren had slightly lowered his guard, Li Mi opened his mouth and said, as expected, he wants to rope me in. Fei Ren was not too surprised when he heard this. Well, he planned to use all his strength to defeat Gu Qingmu. He had expected this situation. With his talent and strength, coupled with the grade 5 spirit treasure in his hand, he would definitely attract the attention of the various factions and sects in the Imperial City. Even the current emperor, Chu Tianyang, was no exception. I'm sorry, Lord Li, forgive me for not being able to comply. In the face of Li Mi's invitation, Fei Ren shook his head and smiled, as if he was unwilling to comply. Although he could gain Chu Tianyang's favor and the powers that secretly coveted him in the Imperial City would restrain themselves, the current situation in the Imperial City was surging with undercurrents. He was not willing to be tied to the same chariot as Chu Tianyang and be drawn into the internal conflict of the imperial city. Perhaps Li Mi didn't know about Prince Jin's ambition and conspiracy, but Fei Ren was very clear in his heart. If it wasn't for the huge reward of the world's heroes competition, and at the same time fighting with the young geniuses of various big forces, he wouldn't have stayed in the imperial city. Why? Seeing Fei Ren's indifferent refusal, Li Mi's expression turned sluggish as he asked, "To be honest, I'm used to living a carefree life. If His Majesty the Emperor needs me to do something, I'll consider it as long as it's within my capabilities. However, I won't become a royal consecrator. I'll have to trouble Lord Li to pass on my message to His Majesty the Emperor." "I'm sorry." Fei Ren cupped his hands and shook his head. Obviously, he had figured out Li Mi's background. After all, a place like the Imperial Palace was heavily guarded and had many experts. If he met Chu Tianyang, with Chu Tianyang's strength and the pressure from a group of royal experts, he would have no choice but to work for the imperial family. Fei Ren didn't want to be controlled by someone else. "Brat, how can you speak to the Grand Commandant like that? Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you have some strength. Don't forget that you're just a lowly commoner." Faced with Fei Ren's lack of appreciation, a middle-aged royal expert frowned and shouted sternly. He was clearly dissatisfied. "Lord Li, I don't think this brat is anything special. He's just a fourth-level Star Realm cultivator. His reputation is undeserved." At this moment, another royal expert stepped forward and spoke aggressively. There was a trace of disdain in his eyes as he looked at Fei Ren. When Fei Ren and Gu Qingmu were fighting, this royal expert wasn't present. He was in charge of guarding the imperial palace. Therefore, he was a little confused about why Chu Tianyang had sent Grand Commandant Li Mi to invite a mere fourth-level Star Realm wandering cultivator. He felt that Chu Tianyang was making a big fuss over nothing. "Whether my reputation is undeserved or not, you can give it a try." Seeing that his strength was being questioned, Fei Ren didn't get angry. Instead, he smiled and hooked his finger at the royal expert. There was a trace of mockery in his voice. Although his opponent was a 7th-level Star Realm cultivator, his overall strength was much weaker than Gu Qingmu's. He was no match for Fei Ren at all. Fei Ren only needed to use 70% of his strength to blow him up with a single punch. "You're courting death." In the face of Fei Ren's provocation, the Imperial Palace expert could no longer suppress the anger in his heart. He immediately rushed out, and at the same time, opened his arms wide and rushed towards the opponent like a fierce eagle. Bang! When the fist and palm collided, the royal expert's arms were intercepted by Fei Ren halfway. He couldn't move at all, like a deflated balloon. "What?" The royal expert's expression changed drastically when he sensed the enormous force coming from his arms. It was as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him. However, before he could react, Fei Ren's fist flew over and smashed heavily into his face. Bang! Up! Accompanied by a blood-curdling scream, the Imperial Palace expert was sent flying backwards. In the end, he crashed into a wall and spat out a mouthful of blood from the corner of his mouth. His entire aura withered, as if he was half dead. "Do you want to give it a try?" After killing the royal expert with a single punch, Fei Ren withdrew his fist and looked at the other person. Originally, Fei Ren didn't want to fight. After all, he had taken a lot of good things from Li Mi and Chu Qian. However, the mouths of these two royal experts were too foul. With Fei Ren's temperament, he naturally couldn't tolerate it. Seeing Fei Ren looking at him, the royal expert broke out in a cold sweat and didn't dare to say anything. After all, Fei Ren had killed his companion with a single punch, and his companion was a martial artist of the 7th level of the Star Realm. This meant that Fei Ren could also easily deal with him. Thinking of this, the royal expert trembled with fear and didn't dare to speak rudely anymore. "Little friend Fei Ren, this guy doesn't know any manners. Please don't take offense. I will pass on your words to His Majesty the Emperor. Goodbye." Glancing at the half-dead Imperial Palace expert at the corner of the wall, Li Mi's expression was grave as he opened his mouth to speak. Clearly, he was somewhat dissatisfied with this Imperial Palace expert taking action without permission. After all, Chu Tianyong admired Fei Ren's talent and strength very much. Having been an official for many years, Li Mi could sense that Chu Tianyong looked at him as if he had found a rich husband. Not to mention that these two royal experts weren't a match for Fei Ren. Even if they used their power to make Fei Ren submit, it wouldn't be a good idea. Of course, in any case, I am a citizen of the Dacha dynasty. If His Majesty the Emperor needs me in the future, I will do my best to help. As for going to the palace and becoming a royal consecrator, forgive me for not being able to comply. Lord Li, please take care. Seeing that Li Mi had the intention to retreat, Fei Ren quietly withdrew his origin power and cupped his hands with a faint smile. Li Mi had come to rope him in under Chu Tianyong's orders. The situation was different from Chu Qian's. Therefore, Fei Ren didn't speak too harshly. This way, not only could he preserve Chu Tianyong's face, but he also had room to maneuver and wouldn't be seen as a thorn in the side of the great Chu imperial family. Very good. I will go back and pass on your message to His Majesty the Emperor. Little friend Fei Ren, farewell. Seeing that there was still a sliver of leeway, Li Mi also secretly breathed a sigh of relief. In the next moment, he turned around and left. The Imperial Palace expert beside him also hurriedly carried his heavily injured companion on his back and followed closely behind Li Mi. Chapter 228. There are still some flies. After Li Mi left, Fei Ren narrowed his eyes. With his current strength, he could clearly sense that there were dozens of powerful origin power fluctuations around him. Although these people were hiding very well, it was obvious that they were coming for him. Fine. Follow me if you don't want to die. The corners of Fei Ren's mouth curled up slightly. In the next moment, he dashed toward the Imperial City Gate at lightning speed. That brat ran away. Just after Fei Ren left, a few figures suddenly appeared in the dark alley not far away. I didn't expect that even a 7th-level star realm martial artist couldn't defeat him. I'm afraid that the few of us won't be a match for him. A man with a scar on his face said fiercely, his tone indignant. They were all rogue cultivators around the Imperial City, and they had followed Fei Ren all the way here. They had originally planned to rob him of his Grade 5 spirit treasure, but the sudden appearance of Li Mi and the others had disrupted their plans. Furthermore, Fei Ren's powerful strength also made these spies not dare to act rashly. After all, the Imperial Court's expert who had been insta-killed earlier was at the 7th level of the Star Realm. If such a powerful expert had been instantly killed by Fei Ren, it was enough to show that Fei Ren's strength was at least on par with an 8th-level Star Realm martial artist, or even stronger. Apart from that, the scene of Fei Ren displaying his invincible might at the Central Plaza and defeating King Tong's #1 disciple, Gu Qingmu, with a thunderous force was still vivid in the minds of these rogue cultivators. If they weren't completely confident, they naturally wouldn't dare to act rashly. Boss, what should we do? Beside the man with a scar on his face, a 6th-level Star Realm martial artist who was as thin as a monkey stepped forward and asked. His eyes were filled with greed, as if he didn't want to let go of Fei Ren, who had a Grade 5 spirit treasure. Follow him. That brat probably hasn't discovered us yet. With our strength, we should be able to take him down and rob him of his Grade 5 spirit treasure. Faced with the yellow-haired young man's probing, the scarred man looked at the few companions beside him and then secretly clenched his fist and said, they were all at least at the 5th level of the Star Realm. Although there weren't many of them, there were still 5 or 6 of them. The most powerful one among them, the scarred man, was at the 7th level of the Star Realm. If they attacked together, they would have a chance to kill Fei Ren. I'm afraid you won't be able to deal with that kid. Suddenly, just as the scarred man and the others were about to move, a faint and aged voice suddenly sounded from behind them. The tone was empty and emotionless. Who is it? Faced with the sudden change, the scar-faced man subconsciously reached for the weapon at his waist. At the same time, he turned his head to look behind him with a shocked expression. Not far behind them, a white-haired old man was standing there quietly. The white-haired old man's aura was as deep as an abyss. At this moment, there was an inexplicable smile on his old face, which made people shudder. If Fei Ren was present at this moment, he would be surprised to find that the white-haired old man in front of him was Chu Qian's guard, the mysterious expert from the princess residence, Feng Xiao. "Who are you?" As soon as the scarred man finished speaking, the expressions of his companions changed abruptly. Then they spread out and looked at Feng Xiao, who had suddenly appeared in front of them, as if they were facing a great enemy. Although they weren't weak, they still couldn't see through Feng Xiao in front of them. It was enough to show that Feng Xiao's strength was far beyond theirs. It had even reached a terrifying level of crushing power. "The person who will kill you." Feng Xiao grinned, and in the next moment, his figure flickered and disappeared. Then he appeared in front of a young man in martial arts clothes and struck out with his palm. Bang! The palm force instantly exploded, and, at the same time, it pierced through the chest of the young man in martial arts clothes. Instantly, blood splattered, and the young man in martial arts clothes powerlessly fell to the ground. He couldn't be more dead. "Oh no! Run!" Seeing that his companion was killed in one move, the scarred man was terrified. He then turned around and tried to escape. At the same time, he ran at his maximum speed. "No one can escape from my hands." Feng Zhao's eyes focused, and his figure disappeared again. At the same time, an incomparably powerful wave of origin power erupted and instantly attacked the scarred man and the others who were fleeing in all directions. The attack was like a gust of wind. Accompanied by a few screams, the scarred man and the others also died in Feng Zhao's hands. Then, they turned into cold corpses, and the ground under their feet was dyed red at the same time. Boom! After dealing with these scarred men, Feng Xiao also raised his hand and waved. In an instant, a few blazing origin power flames were condensed. At the same time, all the blood-stained corpses around were burned and evaporated, leaving no trace behind. "Little brat Fei Run, this old man can only help you this much. This old man really wants to see to what extent you can grow to." Feng Xiao slowly turned around and looked in the direction that Fei Run had left in. At this moment, he was gently stroking his long beard. His eyes involuntarily revealed a tinge of regret. It was as if this was his personal decision, and it had nothing to do with Chu Qian. After leaving the imperial city, Fei Ren's journey was unimpeded, and he wasn't pursued or obstructed by anyone. This caused him to be slightly surprised, as if the dozens of origin energy undulations that were tailing him had vanished into thin air. "That's strange. Who helped me?" His figure slowly landed on the treetops of a dense forest. At this moment, Fei Ren's expression was also a little surprised. He wasn't a fool. Those people who had been tracking him hadn't shown themselves yet. It was obvious that they had been killed by some mysterious expert. Otherwise, the news of him possessing a Tier 5 spirit treasure was enough to make some people covet him and assassinate him in the dark. Forget it. It saves me the trouble of doing it. Thinking of this, Fei Ren also collected his thoughts. Although he did not know who helped him get rid of those flies, he was happy that there were no pursuers. He could peacefully cultivate and prepare for the battle at the same time. Tomorrow was the finals of the World Heroes competition. Before that, Fei Ren also needed to digest the results of today's battle. After all, the battle with Guqimu was not small for his strength. It also allowed him to become more skilled in the Dharma 1000 transformation technique and Dharma Golden Arm. In the future, he would be able to display even more strength. Ren Jianan and Su Sun's strength should be around 50%. Currently, the only troublesome opponent is Crown Prince Chu Jiuxing. If I can defeat him, it would be equivalent to taking first place in the World Heroes competition, and I would be able to obtain a lot of rewards. Thinking of this, Fei Ren secretly clenched his fist. At the same time, his eyes burned with a fiery battle intent. Although the Azure Dragon Halberd was exposed, he still had the Universe 8 Trigrams flag as his trump card. Just like the Azure Dragon Halberd, the Universe 8 Trigrams flag was also a Tier 5 spirit treasure. Moreover, it was a Tier 5 spirit treasure. As long as he had enough spirit energy, he could use the Universe 8 Trigrams flag to defend against thousands of attacks. Apart from that, his spiritual force had also reached the third stage of the profound martial realm. Furthermore, Fei Rin's spiritual attribute martial technique, the spiritual blade, had reached the initial stage. As a third-grade spiritual attribute martial technique, the spiritual blade was also one of his trump cards. If the opponent's spirit energy was low, and if they were not prepared, they would not be able to resist the spirit blade's spirit attack. In the best-case scenario, they would faint on the spot, and in the worst-case scenario, they would die. The next day, as dawn broke, the day of the finals of the World Heroes competition had finally arrived. In the outskirts of the Imperial City, in a dense forest. It's time to go back. Fei Rin was sitting cross-legged. Then he slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were deep and calm, as if he had been sleeping for the whole night. Moreover, his body was still surrounded by spirit energy that had not yet dissipated. It seemed that he had obtained a lot of results after a night of hard work. Chapter 229. At the same time, in the main hall of the Qingyuan sect, Godfather Su Sun slowly stepped into the hall and cupped his hands towards Su Tianqing, who was in the middle of the hall. He then lowered his head and spoke respectfully. Although he was the first disciple and eldest senior brother of Qingyuan's sect in the outside world and was in the limelight, he was still respectful to Su Tianqing in front of him. He did not dare to offend him in the slightest and was not arrogant because of his strength and talent. Su Sun, how's your cultivation of the Qian Yuan martial spiritual technique going? Su Tianqing looked at Su Sun and asked with a serious face. Today was the finals of the World Hero competition. Almost none of the opponents were weak. If one wanted to get a good result, they would have to go through a fierce battle. Su Sun was the first disciple of the Qingyuan sect, so he naturally had high hopes for him. I didn't disappoint Godfather. I have completely mastered the Qian Yuan martial spiritual technique and can fully exert the power of the 10th level. And with the support of the technique, my pure yang body can also double the power. I'm not afraid of anyone. Su Sun nodded again and rubbed his palms. Obviously, he had been waiting for today's finals for a long time. Perhaps others did not know the reason why Su Sun's strength soared, but he knew very well in his heart. If Su Tianqing had not adopted him and taught him martial arts, he would not have stepped on the path of martial arts and awakened the pure yang body. The pure yang body was one of the innate tyrant bodies. Although its power and grade were relatively low, even inferior to Fei Rin's Dharma Golden Buddha body, it was extremely rare for Su Sun. The Qian Yuan martial spiritual technique and the pure yang body could complement each other, so his strength soared. This was the reason why Su Sun's strength soared in just a few years, and he became the first disciple of the Qingyuan sect and one of the 4 geniuses of the Imperial City. Very good. Lingjian School's Ren Jiannan is nothing to be afraid of. Although that rogue cultivator called Fei Rin has a Tier 5 spirit treasure, he is not your match in terms of absolute power. Your only true opponent is Crown Prince Chu Jiuxing. With a wave of his hand, Su Tianqing's resolute face revealed a trace of relief. Although the Qingyuan sect had always been a subject of the Great Chu imperial family, as the sect master of the 9 ranks of the great families, he naturally hoped that his disciples could shine brightly and look down on the heroes. Yes, Su Sun. Su Sun said respectfully again. The next moment, she turned around and left the Qingyuan sect's main hall. She then rushed toward the outside world. Imperial City, North City Gate. Father, why did you only come back now? Looking at the determined Ren Jianlong in front of him, Ren Jiannan's face also froze. He then scratched his head and asked, according to the convention of the past World Heroes competition, the current emperor and the 3 ranks of the great families would personally come to watch the competition. However, Ren Jianlong had disappeared for 2 days and only appeared at the start of the competition. It was no wonder that Ren Jiannan was puzzled. Jiannan, a storm is coming to the Imperial City. You have to be careful. Ren Jianlong gave Ren Jiannan a meaningful look. Ren Jianlong also shook his head and smiled bitterly. He then rushed toward the central square. Although the other party was his son, Chu Wen had been planning for many years to seize the world. Today was the time to draw the net. Naturally, he could not expose the other party's plan. Otherwise, he would be met with disaster. Be careful of what? Su Sun? Chu Jiuxing? Father, what's wrong with you today? In the face of Ren Jinlong's mysterious words, Ren Jiannan was also a little confused. In the next moment, he stopped thinking about it and also flew towards the central square of the imperial city. The central square was already packed with people. A large number of martial artists, rogue cultivators, and commoners had gathered together to watch the show. There were people from all walks of life mixed together. One could see a black mass as far as the eye could see. The atmosphere was so hot that it was suffocating. Damn, there are so many people. Just as he stepped into the central square, Fei Ren was also shocked by the terrifying amount of people around him. Compared to the previous 2 days, the finals of the World Heroes competition were obviously more attractive. Almost all of the martial artists in the Imperial City had gathered here. The central square under his feet was like a huge open-air arena. That kid didn't come today. Looking around, Fei Ren's face became slightly suspicious. Song Sherluan, who had a good relationship with him, came to watch the competition 2 days ago. However, today, he was nowhere to be seen. He did not know the exact reason. The first round of the finals, Ren Jiannan versus Su Sun. While Fei Ren was still in a daze, an Imperial Palace expert flew out from the city gate and landed steadily on the ground. At the same time, he announced the start of the first round. It's starting. The first round is a battle between 2 top geniuses of the 9 ranks of the great families. How exciting! I heard that Ren Jiannan's 9 Azure Sword Art is extremely powerful. He once killed 3 veteran 7th-level Star Realm Masters with 1 strike. Today, I finally have the chance to see it for myself. Seeing the start of the competition, the spectators around started to clamor and talk about it. The atmosphere was in full swing. It's finally starting. Let's see how strong these 2 are. Like everyone else, Fei Ren was also interested in the battle between Ren Jiannan and Su Sun. After all, both of them were the top geniuses of the 9 ranks of the great families. They were definitely not weak. Different from the rules of the first 2 days, the third day of the finals was randomly arranged by the Imperial Court. Plus, the warriors who could make it to the finals were generally not weak, so the competition would be even more intense. There were about 40 warriors who could make it to the finals of this year's World Hero Tournament. Most of them were above the 5th level of the Star Realm. Among them, the Imperial family and sect disciples made up about 70 to 80% of them. There were very few rogue cultivators who could make it to the finals. After all, compared to the Imperial family and sect disciples, normal rogue cultivators would be at a disadvantage. They were inferior in terms of techniques, treasures, and martial arts. Besides Fei Ren, most of the rogue cultivators who made it to the finals were not young. They were 25 or 26 years old. Any older, and they would be disqualified. Brother Su, I didn't expect us to meet in the first round. What a coincidence! In the central square, Ren Jiannan stood with his arms crossed. He looked at Su Sun and said meaningfully, "Although it's a coincidence, I won't go easy on you." Facing Ren Jiannan's probing, Su Sun didn't beat around the bush. Strands of origin power wrapped around his body. He was full of fighting spirit. Although he and Ren Jiannan were both at the 6th level of the Star Realm, their strength was far superior to other warriors of the same level. Both of them were geniuses who could fight above their level. Therefore, Su Sun didn't let his guard down. He wanted to defeat Ren Jiannan with all his strength and then challenge the Crown Prince, Chu Jiuxing, to wash away his shame. Chapter 230. Hehe, as you wish. Seeing this scene, Ren Jiannan was unwilling to be outdone. At the same time, the spirit ring on his right index finger flashed. In the next instant, a sharp green longsword was retrieved from it. The green longsword emitted a dense spirit chi. It was obviously a soul artifact of high grade. Rainbow Sword. Seeing Ren Jiannan take out his natal soul artifact, Su Sun raised his eyebrows. Clearly, he had some understanding of the natal soul artifact. The green longsword in Ren Jiannan's hand was called Rainbow Sword. Not only was it extremely sharp, it could even split mountains and level mountains, but it could also be infused with sword will. At the same time, it could multiply the power of the rainbow sword. It was a rare Tier 4 soul artifact. In addition, the rainbow sword was also the treasure of the Lingjian school of the 9 ranks of the great families. If not for Ren Jiannan's strength and the fact that his opponent was the son of the Lingjian school's head, Ren Jianlong, it would be impossible for him to obtain this sword. Since Ren Jiannan took out his natal soul artifact, it was clear that he did not intend to test the waters. He was going to go all out. Let's settle this today. Let's see who is more qualified to challenge Chu Jiuxing. Holding the rainbow sword tightly in his right hand, Ren Jiannan's aura rose again and again. After a few breaths, it reached its peak. His entire body was like a peerless sword that was about to be unsheathed. At the same time, he emitted a heart-palpitating yuan power fluctuation. Ren Jiannan, even with the rainbow sword support, I will not lose to you. In the face of Ren Jiannan's imposing aura, Su Sun merely smiled coldly. In the next moment, his figure shot out explosively. He raised his hand and punched towards Ren Jiannan's vital point in the abdomen. Surging yuan power mixed with his palm energy instantly brought about a howling hurricane, as if a storm was coming. Insignificant skill. In the face of Su Sun's attack, Ren Jiannan softly snorted. With a light flick of his wrist, he slashed out a piercingly cold green sword chi. The green sword chi soared through the air and instantly shattered the countless yuan power palm attacks, turning them into nothingness. It's not over yet. Seeing that his attack was broken, Su Sun's expression was calm, and he was not too surprised. At the same time, his entire body flew into the air. What is this kid planning to do? Could it be that he wants to imitate Fei Run from yesterday and launch an attack from above? Ren Jiannan's strength isn't weak, and as far as I know, Su Sun doesn't have a grade 5 spirit treasure. Outside the arena, seeing that Su Sun's attack had failed and her entire body had flown straight into the air, some of the spectators were also discussing animatedly, and the atmosphere was heated. Su Sun, you bastard, are you looking down on me? Seeing this scene, Ren Jiannan's expression changed slightly as anger filled his face. It was common knowledge in the world of warriors that if one didn't have the ability to fly, fighting in midair was the most disadvantageous. It was easy to expose one's defensive weaknesses and flaws to the enemy. After all, even some agile Star Realm warriors couldn't find a foothold in midair and avoid the enemy's attacks. Unless it was like yesterday's Fei Run, who directly broke the 10,000 spells in midair, forcibly broke Gu Qingmu's attack, and completed the counterattack at the same time. However, Su Sun was different from Fei Run. He didn't have any 5th-tier spirit treasures on him. This was also the reason why Ren Jiannan felt so angry. It was as if he was being looked down upon by Su Sun. Spirit sword breaking water. With a roar, Ren Jiannan, who was on the ground below, also slashed out diagonally with his sword. Suddenly, a green light shone brightly, and countless sword chi overlapped and gathered in the air, forming a tornado-like sword chi rainstorm, instantly wreaking havoc towards Su Sun, covering the sky and earth. Boom! The sky full of sword chi rainstorm rapidly attacked, rolling up a roar, making it difficult to dodge. Martial arts of heaven. Facing Ren Jiannan's powerful attack, Su Sun, who was in midair, also fiercely clasped her hands together and shouted. Suddenly, a circle of dazzling pure white light was emitted from her body, and then a large amount of Yuan Li wrapped around her body, enveloping her in a white ball of light. It's the martial arts of heaven. It's the Qingyuan sect's secret technique. I heard that the rank of this technique has also reached the 5th tier. It's not inferior to the Lingjian school's 9 Azure Swords technique at all. It seems that Ren Jiannan and Su Sun have both burst out with their full strength. Outside the central square, watching the fierce battle, some of the independent cultivators exclaimed, as if they were shocked by the strength of the two. Puchi! Rumble! Under everyone's gaze, the sky full of sword chi rainstorm also fiercely smashed onto the white ball of light, accompanied by a strange sound of tearing cloth. In the next moment, the sword chi rainstorm exploded, and at the same time there was a roar. Boom! Swoosh! The sword chi rainstorm was destroyed, and the white ball of light gradually dissipated in the next moment. Su Sun's body fell rapidly and finally landed firmly on the ground. It could be seen that her aura was still at its peak, and she was obviously unharmed. How can this be? You're actually unharmed. Seeing that Su Sun was unharmed after taking his powerful sword head-on, Ren Jianan's expression was grave, and his voice was full of shock. His spirit sword breaking water was one of the killing moves of the 9 Azure Swords technique, and its power was close to that of a 4th-tier martial art. If he used his full strength, even an ordinary 7th-tier Star Realm martial artist would find it difficult to block. However, Su Sun had easily blocked it. How could this not surprise Ren Jianan? Su Sun, I underestimated you. I didn't expect your martial spirit technique to have broken through to the 8th tier. His expression gradually recovered, and Ren Jianan also put his longsword in front of him with a serious expression. The 9 Azure Swords technique that he cultivated was a 5th-tier martial art, and its power was extraordinary. Moreover, the path of the sword emphasized on using offense as defense, and abandoning all defense for offense. With an incomparably powerful attack, one could instantly break the opponent's defense and kill them. However, Su Sun in front of him was the complete opposite. Su Sun's attack power was not top-notch, and was even inferior to Gu Qingmu of the Pavilion of Princeton. However, his defense was shockingly powerful. The martial spirit technique that he cultivated focused on defense and counterattack, and focused on using one's strength to resist 10,000 attacks. The martial spirit technique was also a 5th-tier martial art, and Su Sun was able to block Ren Jianan's spirit sword breaking water so easily. It was obvious that he had cultivated the technique to the 8th tier or even higher. Otherwise, he would not have been able to do it so easily. Su Sun was only a 1st-tier Star Realm martial artist 3 years ago. I didn't expect his strength to increase so quickly in just 3 years. Even his martial spirit technique has reached the 8th tier or higher. Could it be that the rumors are true, and that this kid is the illegitimate son of that old dog, Su Tianxing? At the city gate, Lin Feng's eyes narrowed as he saw Su Sun take Ren Jianan's sword chi head-on without suffering any injuries. In the central square, the atmosphere was tense. Same here. Ren Jianan, your strength has also increased a lot. Ignoring Ren Jianan's exclamation, Su Sun's eyes were calm. In the next moment, the spirit ring on his finger flashed, and a pair of pitch-black gloves appeared. He slowly put them on, as if he had not used his full strength just now. Unlike Ren Jianan, who specialized in using swords and cultivated the path of the sword, Su Sun was best at close combat. At the same time, the pair of gloves in his hand was a rare 4th-tier spirit artifact. Chapter 231. Even if you've reached the 8th level of a martial spirit technique, it's still impossible for you to defeat me. The rainbow sword in Ren Jianan's hand trembled slightly. In the next moment, a sharp glint flashed across his eyes. Although the spirit sword water splitter originated from the 9 sword techniques of the Azure Sky, it wasn't his strongest killing move. He still had a stronger trump card that he hadn't used yet. Then let's try. Without wasting any more words with Ren Jianan, Su Sun stomped his feet on the ground and charged forward like a cannonball. In an instant, he arrived in front of Ren Jianan. At the same time, his hands formed into palms and blasted forward. Unlike Ren Jianan's attacks, Su Sun's every move was wide open like a steady mountain. His momentum was hard to resist. Whoosh, whoosh. A gust of wind whistled through the air as origin energy mixed with the force of the palm shot toward Ren Jianan's shoulders. If this palm landed, even if Ren Jianan's origin energy cultivation was at the 6th level of the Star Realm, the bones in his shoulders would shatter and break into pieces. Spirit Sword Water Splitter. As he swung his sword through the air, Ren Jianan instantly unleashed a boundless amount of yuan power. At the same time, the tip of his sword viciously slashed towards his opponent's palms. With the support of a large amount of yuan power, the rainbow sword also exploded with a dazzling light, instantly increasing its power. Using offense as defense, cutting off all means of retreat. This was the battle strategy of a swordsman. Ren Jianan was very clear that if the battle dragged on, it would be very disadvantageous for him. He had to end the battle quickly. After all, the martial spirit technique of the Azure Sky was focused on defense and didn't consume a lot of yuan power. On the other hand, the 9 sword techniques of the Azure Sky was an ultimate sword technique. It focused on killing. Once he attacked, he couldn't stop. Otherwise, he would easily suffer a strong backlash. Therefore, he could only keep attacking and try to defeat his opponent. Clang, clang, clang. In a breath's time, the incomparably sharp rainbow sword fiercely slashed at Su Sun's specially made gloves. Instantly, a violent yuan power shockwave exploded. In the next moment, Su Sun's figure couldn't withstand the yuan power shockwave and was immediately sent flying backward. He looked very miserable. Boom! Su Sun's face was slightly pale, and his breathing was unstable. At the same time, there were 2 huge holes in the special gloves on his hands. It seemed that Ren Jianan's rainbow sword had almost pierced through them. As expected of 4th-grade spirit treasure, its power is still strong. However, it's about time. Su Sun felt a tinge of sweetness in his throat. In the next moment, Su Sun also circulated the Qianyuan martial spiritual technique and forcefully suppressed the internal injuries in his body. His eyes burned with a fiery passion. The heaven origin martial spirit technique he cultivated was different from ordinary martial arts. It focused on defense and counterattack. The heaven origin martial spirit technique had a total of 10 levels. Every time he broke through a level, his defense would increase by a lot. Furthermore, when he cultivated to the 10th level, he would be able to comprehend an ability, reflect damage. After breaking through to the 10th level of the martial spirit technique of Qianyuan, Su Sun's body would accumulate a layer of energy every time she suffered an injury. When the energy accumulated to the 10th level, it would completely explode, causing great damage to the enemy and making it difficult to resist. Moreover, Su Sun had already awakened the pure yang body several years ago. The pure yang body was one of the weaker, innate tyrannical bodies, but it gave him a strong recovery ability. It was because of this that he was not afraid to exchange injuries with Ren Jianan. At the same time, he was secretly accumulating the levels of the heaven origin martial spirit technique. On the other side of the central square, compared to Su Sun, Ren Jianan's situation was not good. He also looked very miserable. Ugh! A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Ren Jianan's face was serious. Although he had repelled Su Sun with his sword and avoided some of his vital points, he was still hit by Su Sun's palm. A clear scar could be seen on the left side of his chest. Su Sun, this bastard. Why didn't I know his skin was so tough? Could it be that his heaven origin martial spirit technique has not only broken through to the 8th level? How is this possible? Ren Jianan's heart was filled with mixed feelings. Seeing that Su Sun was only slightly injured after withstanding his full strength attack, Ren Jianan could not believe it. This bastard, no matter how profound your heaven origin martial spirit technique is, you can't resist the power of my sword will. Thinking of this, Ren Jianan also deeply exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. At the same time, his entire body exuded a sharp aura, as if a divine sword had appeared in the world. In the next moment, the rainbow sword in his hand slashed out, instantly slashing out a huge green sword chi. Minor success, sword will. Outside the square, seeing that Ren Jianan's aura had increased by another level, the spectators were in an uproar. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the power of Ren Jianan's sword was several times stronger than before. Clearly, he had used the power of sword will. Moreover, it was not the embryonic form of sword will, but the genuine minor success sword will. Good. Although Su Sun hadn't comprehended any intent realm, the heaven origin martial spirit technique he cultivated had reached the 10th level of the consummate realm. If he used his full strength, his defense was dozens of times stronger than that of an ordinary cultivator. It was enough to block the full-strength attack of a 9th level star realm cultivator. Swoosh! Everyone only saw a white light flash in front of their eyes. In the next moment, Su Sun's whole body was enveloped by a pure white ball of light. At this moment, he was also exuding a suffocating, invisible wave. He had pushed his defense to the limit, planning to block Ren Jiannan's powerful strike that contained minor success sword will. Minor success sword will, minor success level 5 cultivation method. This is crazy. Without the help of the Azure Dragon Halberd and the 8 trigrams banner, it would not be so easy for me to defeat either of them. As expected of a number 1 genius of the 9 ranks of the great families. Outside the square, Fei Run, who was also watching the battle, narrowed his eyes and looked slightly surprised. It was undeniable that although Ren Jiannan and Su Sun were no match for him when he used all his trump cards, it did not mean that they were weak. If their opponents were an ordinary 8th level star realm martial artist, Fei Ren was sure that they could easily kill him. Seeing this, Fei Ren also had an epiphany. He had underestimated Ren Jiannan and Su Sun from the beginning. Moreover, the current crown prince, Chu Jiuxing, was even stronger than these two. If he wanted to win, he would have to use all of his trump cards or reach the 5th level of the star realm. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for him to defeat Chu Jiuxing. Bang! Rumble! Under the astounded gazes of everyone, the enormous azure-colored sword Qi fiercely slashed onto the pure white ball of light. In the next moment, violent sword intent and origin energy exploded out as well. At the same time, it brought about a raging gale, and even the ground beneath everyone's feet trembled without end. It was as if the heavens and the earth were shaking, and its impetus was shocking. Gulp! At the city gate, an elder of the Qingyuan sect who was watching the battle secretly swallowed his saliva. His expression was almost a little sluggish. Is this still a battle between juniors? Shocked, this Qingyuan sect elder's face also showed a trace of fear. Although Su Sun's cultivation of the martial technique of Heaven Primordial had reached the peak of the 10th layer long ago, Ren Jiannan's small success sword intent was also extremely shocking. In addition, the 9 sword arts of the Azure Sky was extremely powerful. If Su Sun was in Ren Jiannan's place, he also did not have the confidence to block Ren Jiannan's full-strength sword strike. Chapter 232. Ren Jiannan and Su Sun's strength was no weaker than any veteran 8th level star realm martial artist. Minor completion sword will. If Su Sun's martial spirit technique hasn't reached level 10, it might be difficult for her to block this attack. Looking at the intense battle in the central square, Sect Master Su Tianxing's heart skipped a beat. Ren Jiannan was not only the number 1 genius of the Lingjian school, but he was also Ren Jinlong's son. He had been cultivating top-notch techniques and martial arts since he was a child. His talent was not weak, and he also had the Lingjian school's most treasured sword, the Rainbow Sword. If it weren't for Su Sun's pure young body and the fact that she had cultivated the martial arts of Qianyuan to the 10th level, she would have lost the battle. Even Su Tianxing didn't have much confidence in winning. However, based on the strength displayed by the two on the square, both sides had a 50% chance of winning. Rumble! In the central square, along with the explosion of sword will and a large amount of origin energy, a huge shockwave swept across the square. The ground shook and clouds of dust rose, covering more than half of the central square. Ren Jiannan and Su Sun's figures disappeared from everyone's sight. They were also covered by the thick cloud of dust. One sword strike was enough to shock heaven and earth and make ghosts and gods weep. The power of Ren Jiannan's sword strike was enough to kill any 8th level star realm martial artist and even severely injure a 9th level star realm martial artist. Even if Su Sun specializes in defense, it would be difficult for her to block such a powerful strike. It's hard to say. Although Su Sun of the Qingyuan sect is a genius who rose to prominence in recent years, she must have some trump cards in her hand. She shouldn't be defeated so easily. Minor completion sword will. It's very rare for a normal martial artist to comprehend even a trace of sword will. Ren Jianan is indeed the Lingjian school's sword Dao genius. While the crowd was still gasping in shock, a familiar figure emerged from the dust cloud and landed at a corner of the square with a grave expression on his face. It was Ren Jianan, who had just unleashed a heaven-shaking slash. This Su guy is still standing. With a bewildered expression, Ren Jianan withdrew his rainbow sword and placed it in front of him. Even though he had used all his strength, he could still feel that Su Sun's yuan power undulations were still present. Evidently, she had not completely lost her ability to fight. Swoosh! Swish! Amidst the spirited discussion, the dust on the battlefield gradually dispersed after a few breaths, revealing its true appearance. Su Sun maintained a defensive posture with his hands in front of his chest. At this moment, his robe was torn, revealing his strong chest. However, it was stained with blood, and his arms and limbs were also not spared. They were all covered with scars, and he looked very miserable. Ooh! Su Sun gently exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. In the next moment, Su Sun also spread her arms outwards. At the same time, a trace of fanaticism flashed in her eyes. Heaven Origin Spiritual Art, Level 9. From the beginning of the battle until now, he had chosen to face Ren Jianan's every attack head-on, exchanging injuries for injuries. Finally, he had reached the 9th level of the Heaven Origin Spiritual Art. Once the 10th level of the Heaven Origin Spiritual Art reached, he would be able to fully unleash the power of Reflect and inflict heavy damage to the enemy. In layman's terms, the Heaven Origin Spiritual Art was a self-harming technique that would only get stronger the more you were beaten, exchanging one's own injuries for a powerful Reflect damage. What is Su Sun doing? Does he really think that taking a beating will exhaust my yuan power? However, at this moment, Ren Jianan could not understand his opponent's actions. Even though he had fought with Su Sun before, Su Sun had not reached the 10th level of the Heaven Origin Spiritual Art. At the same time, he had not awakened his pure yang body. Therefore, Ren Jianan was not clear about Su Sun's trump card. On the other hand, Su Sun knew Ren Jianan like the back of his hand. Ren Jianan, looks like your small success sword intent is only SOSO. Su Sun wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and secretly activated his pure yang body to heal his injuries. At the same time, he raised his eyes to look at Ren Jianan. So what if you can block this sword? With your current injuries, I estimate that you won't even have a tenth of your strength left. Facing Su Sun's provocation, Ren Jianan's face was first filled with anger. Then he coldly snorted. Even though he could not defeat Su Sun in one strike, Su Sun was also heavily injured. Therefore, Ren Jianan's confidence did not diminish. Moreover, in the eyes of the spectators, Ren Jianan indeed had the upper hand and could decide the outcome of the match at any time. Then you can try. Facing the angry Ren Jianan, Su Sun once again circulated his yuan power. At the same time, he condensed a pure white ball of light around his body. Under the overlapping layers of light balls, it instantly transformed into a huge yuan power barrier that enveloped his entire body. It was obvious that he intended to use defense as an attack and defend with all his strength. Compared to the Qianyuan martial spirit technique, Ren Jianan's 9 Azure Heaven Sword Art was a technique that pursued the pinnacle of offense. Every time he used it, it would consume a lot of his yuan power. Moreover, using it frequently would also consume a lot of his mental energy. Therefore, even though Su Sun's injuries were not light, Ren Jianan's situation was not much better. His yuan power had also been depleted by more than half, and his strength was not at its peak. Surnamed Su, this young master wants to see how your tortoiseshell will block this sword. 9 Azure Heaven Sword Art. seal the heavens, and rend the earth. Hearing this, Ren Jianan laughed instead of being angry. At the same time, the rainbow sword in his hand slashed out again. Instantly, a majestic yuan power swept out and turned into a biting cold and violent green sword chi. A large amount of green sword chi crazily gathered at a single point. As if it was endless, it instantly transformed into a terrifying sword chi tornado. Boom! As soon as the sword chi tornado appeared, the entire central square shook. The solid asphalt tiles under everyone's feet were instantly shattered. The huge sword chi tornado swept out in all directions, causing waves of wind that caused people to involuntarily feel pain on their cheeks. For a moment, it was as if the sky had changed color. Slash! With another roar, Ren Jianan's sword was pushed to the limit. In the next moment, the sword chi tornado attacked Su Sun. This was his strongest attack, and also the ultimate move of the 9 Azure Heaven Sword Art. In order to defeat Su Sun in this battle, he had already given it his all. Pure Yang Body, Heaven Essence Spiritual Technique. Seeing Ren Jianan's full strength, Su Sun did not dare to be careless. Immediately, he circulated the Heaven Essence Spiritual Technique to the limit. At the same time, he also activated his Pure Yang Body. Accompanied by a warm current flowing through his 8 extraordinary meridians, Su Sun also felt the injuries in his body rapidly healing. At the same time, his body's defensive power was continuously increasing. Boom! Rumble! Under countless shocked gazes, Su Sun's figure was also swallowed by the enormous sword energy tornado and finally disappeared. Only a series of ear-piercing tearing sounds could be heard, as well as a bone-piercing sword wind that constantly emitted from it, causing one's heart to palpitate. Is it over? What a terrifying sword! Is this Ren Jianan's true strength? Looks like Su Sun is going to lose. With his high 6th level Star Realm cultivation, even if he cultivated the Heaven Essence spiritual technique, it would be difficult for him to block this shocking sword. Seeing Su Sun's figure being swallowed by the sword chi tornado, the spectators outside the square were also shocked. They could not help but discuss spiritedly. Even their eyes were filled with fear as they looked at Ren Jianan, as if the battle had already ended. Chapter 233. In the central square, the sword chi tornado was still raging. Break! Just when everyone thought that the outcome of the battle had been decided, Su Sun's figure reappeared in the next moment. At the same time, with a roar, the originally unstoppable sword chi tornado was forcibly torn apart by a majestic origin power shock wave. Then, it dissipated into nothingness. How is this possible? Seeing Su Sun instantly break his strongest attack, Ren Jianan, who was not far away, was dumbfounded. His face was full of shock. This move, seal the heavens and rend the earth, was the strongest killing move of the 9 Sword Arts Azure Skies. It was also supported by his initial success sword intent, so its power had increased exponentially. It was enough to severely injure an ordinary 9th level Star Realm martial artist, but still could not break through the opponent's defense. He actually broke my sword. How can this guy's defense be so abnormal? No, it's the innate dominating body. Outside the square, Fei Ren's eyes were also full of shock. The next moment, his heart trembled. Just like the Dharma Golden Buddha body that he cultivated, Fei Ren also noticed that Su Sun's body was full of endless healing power. It seemed to be some kind of rare dominating body and an innate dominating body that could grow. Pure Yang body? No wonder he could withstand Ren Jianan's repeated attacks without falling. It seems that Chu Jiuxing didn't lie to me. Su Sun hit his trump card quite well. Reaching out to touch his chin, Fei Ren's expression gradually returned to normal. Although the Pure Yang body was a kind of innate dominating body that could grow with the martial artist's strength, the Pure Yang body could not only increase the martial artist's strength, but also bring amazing healing power. Su Sun's cultivation technique, the martial arts of heaven and earth, was a top-notch defensive cultivation technique. Coupled with the terrifying healing power of her pure yang body, she was able to firmly suppress Ren Jiannan, who specialized in swordsmanship. After all, if the strongest spear couldn't break the strongest shield, then it was equivalent to being crippled. You actually have the innate dominating body. At this time, not only Fei Run, but also Ren Jiannan, who was in the square, discovered Su Sun's secret and immediately exclaimed in surprise. He had fought with Su Sun before. At that time, Su Sun had not mastered the mighty body. With the double help of the innate mighty body and the martial spiritual skill of Qian Yuan, it was not difficult to imagine why Su Sun's strength had improved by leaps and bounds and was promoted to the first genius of Qing Yuan's sect. It's over. Chibaku Tensei. Su Sun's eyes were cold and emotionless. Ignoring Ren Jiannan's question, Su Sun spread his arms wide open. Strands of majestic origin energy gushed out from his body. The large amount of origin energy instantly condensed into a huge ball of pure white light above his head. Then it exploded with a loud bang. Not good. Seeing this scene, Ren Jiannan's face also changed greatly. He was already exhausted from the battle, and the Yuan Qi in his Dantian was also close to exhaustion. Moreover, the frequent use of sword intent had also consumed a lot of his mental energy. At this time, he was simply unable to resist Su Sun's counterattack. Rumble, rumble, accompanied by a gust of wind. In the next moment, a large amount of origin energy spread outwards. It was as if the entire central square was shrouded in a dazzling white light. The ground under everyone's feet was also trembling at this time, as if it was going to collapse at any time. Ren Jiannan, who was in the center of the explosion, was also drowned by the endless origin energy. He only let out a roar, and then his figure disappeared. It's over. At the city gate, several sect elders and higher-ups looked at each other. The next moment, Lin Feng's faint voice came from his side. His tone was meaningful. Yes, it's over. I didn't expect Su Sun to hide so deeply. Not only did he cultivate the martial spiritual skill of Qian Yuan to perfection, but he also awakened the pure yang body. Amazing pure yang body? Upon hearing this, one of the elders of the pavilion of Prince Tung's expression changed slightly. He had naturally heard of the power of the innate tyrannical body. Basically, any martial artist who could awaken the innate tyrannical body would become a mighty figure with great achievements in the future. Su Qianxing, you have taught a good disciple. As his voice fell, Chu Tianyang, who was in front of everyone, also sighed. Then, he looked at Su Qianxing. Based on the strength that Su Sun had shown so far, he was no weaker than Chu Jiuxing. Su Sun's performance was obviously related to the Qing Yuan sect's sect master, Su Tianxing. Your Majesty is too kind. Compared to His Royal Highness, this kid is still a little lacking. In the face of Chu Tianyang's praise, Su Qianxing was very cautious and low-key at this time. He only cupped his hands and seemed to be unwilling to be in the limelight too much. In the central square, the aftermath of the origin energy shock wave gradually dissipated, and the eyes of the spectators were once again clear. They saw that Su Sun's figure was still standing on the field, but his aura had dropped a lot. He was very dispirited. At this moment, he was gasping for breath. At the same time, his body was also covered with various wounds. However, compared to Su Sun, Ren Jiannan's situation was even more tragic. Ren Jiannan's body fell to the ground. His robes were tattered, and there was a large amount of blood on his body. His whole body had fallen into a state of shock. There was only one breath left in his nostrils. It was obvious that his life was in danger, and he had completely lost his ability to fight. Have I reached my limit? Looking inside himself with his origin energy, Su Sun found that there were a lot of obvious injuries inside and outside his body. His face was also pale. The next moment, he knelt on the ground and could no longer stand up. Although the pure yang body could quickly heal a martial artist's injuries, it was not instantaneous. After taking on Ren Jiannan's sword attack again and again, Su Sun's body had also reached its limit. His injuries were not light. Any middle and high-level martial artist could easily kill him. If not for the protection of the pure yang body, Su Sun would be in an even more tragic state and would not be able to hold on until now. The reason why he could defeat Ren Jianan was not only because of the Qian Yuan martial spirit technique, but also because of the innate tyrant body. Central Square, it's time to announce. I'm the winner of this battle. Although he was kneeling on the ground, Su Sun's consciousness was still clear. Seeing that the surroundings were completely silent, Su Sun immediately frowned. Soon after, he looked at a nearby palace expert who was in charge of refereeing and said in a rough tone, "This battle is Su Sun's victory." Facing Su Sun's cold gaze, the palace expert shuddered. In the next moment, he shouted loudly, his voice filled with shock. After all, the intensity of the battle between Ren Jianan and Su Sun was simply too shocking. It was even more intense than the battle between Fei Run and Gu Qingmu 2 days ago. In fact, it was even more terrifying than the battle between Fei Run and Gu Qingmu. It was comparable to a battle between 9th-level Star Realm cultivators of the older generation. I didn't expect the Imperial City to be so lively. Just when the outcome of the battle was decided, the cold and emotionless voice of a man suddenly came from several hundred feet above the ground. The voice was like an ice cave, causing people to tremble in fear. "Who is it? Who are you?" As soon as the voice fell, the expressions of everyone present, including Emperor Chu Tianyang, changed slightly. Then, they all looked up at the sky with different expressions. Above the pure blue clouds, there was a tall figure standing quietly. The tall figure was wearing a red and gold python robe. His face was cold and resolute, and clouds were swirling around his sleeves. He was like an immortal descending to the mortal world. His entire body was filled with a heart-palpitating origin energy fluctuation. It was the current King Jin, Chu Wan. Chapter 234. Chu Wan. When he saw who it was, Chu Tianyang's pupils suddenly shrank, and his expression changed slightly. How is this possible? He actually broke through the shackles of the realm and stepped into the martial master realm. As everyone knew, flying in the air could only be mastered by experts above the martial master realm. Chu Wan, who was standing in front of him, was standing in the clouds hundreds of feet high. Shockingly, he had mastered the ability to fly in the air and stepped into the martial master realm of the 3 realms of the martial body. In the world of martial artists, the gap between the martial master realm and the high star realm could be said to be huge. A LV1 martial master could easily deal with dozens or even dozens of high star realm martial artists besieging him with ease. In the hundreds of years since the establishment of the Dacha dynasty, there had never been a true martial master realm expert. Even the current emperor, Chu Tianyang, was only a half-step martial master. A martial master realm expert was enough to destroy a sect and establish a country. At the same time, this was also the terrifying part of a martial master realm expert. It's Prince Jin Chu Wan. Flying in the air is an ability that only martial masters can master. Could it be that Chu Wan has stepped into the legendary martial master realm? It can't be wrong. This unparalleled, terrifying aura. No high-star realm martial artist can contend with it. Prince Jin Chu Wan has broken through to the martial master realm. At the same time, not only Chu Tianyang on the city gate, but the martial artists watching the battle in the central square below also discovered Chu Wan's existence. For a moment, there was an uproar. Everyone was shocked. After all, a martial master realm expert was rare in the Dacha dynasty. I didn't expect Prince Jin to break through to the LV1 martial master realm. It seems that the Imperial City is going to change. On the side, looking at the imposing Chu Wan in the sky, the Qingyuan sect's sect master, Su Tianxing, had a solemn expression. Before the World Hero competition began, he didn't have a deep understanding of King Jin Chu Wan. He only knew that Chu Wan had been silently cultivating all these years and rarely showed his face in public. The iron armor troop under his command had always been controlled by Xiahou Ba and a few other trusted aides, as if they were idlers who didn't care about worldly affairs. However, what Su Tianqing did not expect was that this was just Chu Wen's plan to conceal his strength and bide his time. The other party had been waiting for the right time to reveal his ambitions. Now, the day had finally arrived. Currently, Chu Wen's cultivation had already broken through to the first level of the Martial Master Realm, becoming the only Martial Master Realm expert in the Dacha dynasty. On the other hand, his elder brother, the current Emperor Chu Tianyang, was only a half-step Martial Master Realm expert. Chu Wen had suddenly appeared in the Imperial City during the finals of the World Assembly of Heroes. His strength had greatly increased, and he had become the #1 person in the Dacha dynasty. It was obvious that he had not come to simply watch the show. A bloody storm was unavoidable. LV-1 Martial Master. On the ground below, Fei Ren's eyelids twitched as he looked at King Jin, Chu Wen, whose aura was like a rainbow and whose might could suppress the world. His expression instantly became grave. Although he knew that Chu Wen was an ambitious wolf, Fei Ren realized that he had made a fatal mistake. Chu Wen was not only an ambitious wolf, but he was also extremely shrewd. It was rumored that his strength did not exceed the 9th level of the Star Realm. It seemed that it was just a cover to confuse the public. Damn it, I was too careless. I didn't expect this guy to actually step into the first level of the Martial Master Realm. This is troublesome. Thinking of this, Fei Ren's expression turned ugly. Previously, he had secretly played a trick on Xiahou Ba in the Azure Sun County City. A few days ago, he had forcefully killed a group of black-clothed men sent by Chu Wen. Now, the two sides were like fire and water, and there were many grudges and grudges. If Chu Wen succeeded in unifying the world, Fei Ren would definitely not be able to bear the consequences. Sooner or later, he would be dealt with. After all, with Chu Wen's temperament, he would definitely not allow a genius who was unwilling to submit to him to continue living. He would definitely think of a way to kill him. Run. Just as Fei Ren had such a thought in his mind, there was a sudden commotion and explosion of origin energy on the city gate. Lin Fengyu, Chu Tianyang's face flushed red. In the next moment, he turned around and looked at Lin Feng behind him. At the same time, his right hand circulated surging origin energy to protect his abdomen. A trace of blood could be vaguely seen, and at the same time, half of his dragon robe was soaked in blood. Protect the Emperor! In the blink of an eye, just as the change happened, several elders of the Qingyuan sect, and Su Tianqing flashed to Chu Tianyang's side. Medicine King Lin Feng and some of the elders of the pavilion of Tung Wang landed on the opposite side. The atmosphere instantly became heated. Lin Feng, how dare you attack the Emperor? The pavilion of Tung Wang's heart is punishable. With his eyes wide open, Su Tianqing looked at Lin Feng with a face full of anger and berated. Just as Chu Wen appeared, Lin Feng, who was behind him, suddenly attacked Chu Tianyang. Fortunately, Chu Tianyang's strength was not ordinary, and his reaction was fast, so he only suffered a slight injury. Your Majesty, I'm very sorry. In the future, the great Chu kingdom will be in the hands of Prince Jin. And you people from the Qingyuan sect, let me give you a piece of advice. A wise man submits to circumstances. Otherwise, you will die without a burial ground. Facing the questioning of Su Tianqing, Chu Tianyang, and the others, Lin Feng only smiled coldly. His tone was playful, and in the next moment, his figure flashed and left, as if he did not intend to fight with Chu Tianyang and the others in front of him. At the same time, he ran straight towards the city gate. Although he did not severely injure Chu Tianyang with one strike, Lin Feng did not care. With his strength, he was not a match for Chu Tianyang. Chu Tianyang, who was at the half-step Martial Master Realm, would naturally be dealt with by Chu Wen in the sky. What he needed to do was to coordinate from the inside and outside and help the rebels of the Iron Armor Army to kill their way into the Imperial City. Lin Feng, you bastard! Damn it! Don't chase! Seeing Lin Feng turn and run, Su Tianqing stomped his feet. However, Just as he was about to chase after him, he was stopped by Chu Tianyang. "Your Majesty!" "You!" Being stopped, Su Tianqing's face also froze. Don't chase a cornered enemy. Since Chu Wen is planning to rebel, he must have made sufficient preparations. Otherwise, even if there is a trace of risk, he would not make a move. As his big brother, I understand his temperament the best. Minister Su, I want to ask you for a favor. If it is really a matter of life and death, take care of Jiuxing and Qian for me. Even if you have to give Great Chu to Chu Wen, it is fine. There is no need for your Qingyuan sect disciples to sacrifice for me. Lin Feng is right. A wise man submits to circumstances. His expression was firm and serious. In the next moment, Chu Tianyang also sighed softly, as if he had expected today's situation. In fact, he was not unaware of Chu Wen's ambition. At the same time, he had secretly made preparations. However, what Chu Tianyang never expected was that Chu Wen's cultivation base had broken through to the first level of the martial master realm. Moreover, he had even instigated Lin Feng and the 9 ranks of the great family's pavilion of Princeton. "Your Majesty!" In the face of Chu Tianyang's great request, Su Tianqing also frowned with grief and indignation. Prince Jin is rebelling. The rebels are about to attack the imperial city. Run! Just as the pavilion of Prince Tung, Lin Feng, and the others rebelled, a burst of exclamations suddenly came from the crowd below. Immediately, countless martial artists, rogue cultivators, and civilians fled in all directions as if a great disaster was imminent. They did not dare to stay in the central square any longer. In the clouds hundreds of feet high in the sky, Chu Wen's figure was still standing. "Brother, it seems that your days as an emperor have come to an end." Looking at the commotion on the ground below, countless martial artists and civilians fled. Chu Wen in the sky seemed to have expected this. He immediately sneered coldly. Chapter 235. Chu Wen, do you know the punishment for rebelling against your superiors? Chu Tianyang took out a pill from his spirit ring and swallowed it, slowly recovering his injuries. At the same time, he looked at Chu Wen in the sky, and his eyes gradually became cold and serious. Now that things had come to this, the battle between him and Chu Wen was unavoidable. If he won, this rebellion in the imperial city would have a chance to be quelled. If he lost, it would be beyond redemption. The entire Chu imperial family and even the imperial court would experience a reshuffle and slaughter. Jiuxing, Qian, the imperial family of the Chu can only rely on you in the future. Thinking of this, Chu Tianyang felt a chill in his heart. Even if he was going to die in this battle, he had to fight for the last bit of time to preserve the imperial bloodline. "Ha ha, Chu Tianyang, I used to respect you as my elder brother and help you obtain the throne of the world. But what about you? How did you treat me? After 20 years, I finally figured out. Father's decision back then was wrong. Why can you, the eldest son, inherit the throne? I, Chu Wen, am clearly more capable and talented than you. I am the legitimate emperor of the Dachu dynasty." In the sky, facing Chu Tianyang's rebuke, Chu Wen raised his head and laughed. His face was crazy, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. "Chu Tianyang, the spies you planted in the Iron Armor Army have all been eliminated by me. Moreover, the inner palace experts lurking around the Jin Mansion have already been dealt with by my shadow guards. Before sunset tomorrow, the main force of this king's Iron Armor Army will be able to move to the Imperial City Gate. Breaking into the palace is just around the corner. Brother, this is the last time this king will call you this. You are already at the end of your road." Changing the topic, Chu Wen also grinned and sneered. In the next moment, his figure flickered and landed on the city gate tower. A pair of cold and emotionless eyes looked at Chu Tianyang and the others. "Your Highness Prince Jin." At this time, looking at the imposing Chu Wen in front of them, several Spirit Sword sect elders who had not yet left looked at each other in dismay and then weakly said, "These people did not even have time to react to the unforeseen event in front of them." Originally, The finals of the World Hero Competition were in full swing. Who would have thought that Chu Wen would suddenly appear halfway? Furthermore, he was a powerful level 1 martial master. Apart from this, these Lingjian school elders were similarly unprepared for the arrival of an army from outside the imperial city, as well as the betrayal of the people from the pavilion of Prince Tang and the Medicine King, Lin Feng. After all, the head of the Lingjian school, Ren Jianlong, was not present. As the leader of the dragons, he naturally felt flustered when he saw this scene. All of you can scram now. For the sake of your relationship with Ren Jianlong, as long as you don't resist, I can spare your lives. Chu Wen glanced at the few Lingjian school elders beside him and snorted coldly. He seemed to have sensed their thoughts. After all, when he entered the city, he had completely defeated the head of the Lingjian school, Ren Jianlong, and made him submit. If he killed the people from the Lingjian school now, it would inevitably make Ren Jianlong unhappy. This would be very detrimental to Chu Wen's future rule of the Dacha dynasty. Although his origin power cultivation had broken through to level 1 martial master, it was difficult for him to outshine others for long. At this moment, Chu Wen still needed the support of the 3-9 ranks of the great families. Only then would he have the opportunity to accumulate strength and contend with the Dongling province and other dynasties in the future. In the outside world of the Dacha dynasty, it could be said that there were strong enemies around. For example, Xichang country, Beigong country, Fuyao country, and other dynasties, none of them were weak. Among them, the most powerful Dongling province was full of talents and had a shocking foundation. Even though he hadn't ascended to the position of emperor, Chu Wen had already made plans for his future path of hegemony. He wasn't satisfied with just being the emperor of the Darchu dynasty. He wanted to become even stronger and become the #1 expert in the entire Hengduan mountain range and even the surrounding dynasties and kingdoms. Thank you, Your Royal Highness Prince Jean. Hearing this, these Lingjian school elders were also as if they had been pardoned. They immediately fled in all directions and did not dare to stay here for a moment. It was as if they had already been shocked by Chu Wen's powerful aura. They all looked panicked. Su Tianxing, what about you guys? Do you also insist on being enemies with me? What benefits did Chu Tianyang give you guys? You guys from the Qingyuan sect are working so hard for him. Seeing that the people from the Lingjian school had dispersed, Chu Wen turned his gaze and looked at Chu Tianyang and the others again. His tone was cold and ruthless. Your Royal Highness Prince Jean, since ancient times, the eldest son of the direct line of descent has inherited the throne. Your actions are not only rebelling against your superiors, but also violating the ancestral teachings of the Chu clan. In the future, you will be despised by the world. In the face of Chu Wen's threat, Su Tianxing frowned. At the same time, strands of origin power surged out of his body as if he was unwilling to compromise. Sect Master. Seeing this scene, the faces of several Qingyuan sect elders changed slightly. Although Su Tianxing was loyal to the royal family, they were different. Chu Wen was a genuine LV1 martial master. His strength was unfathomable, and he was brave. Even if all of them were to attack together, they would be no match for him. Therefore, these Qingyuan sect elders did not want to court death. Although guarding the royal family could win Qingyuan sect praise from all sides of the Dacha dynasty and make a name for themselves in history, Prince Jean, Chu Wen, was very powerful now. There were rebels from the Iron Armor Army outside the city. There were also people from the pavilion of Prince Tang and the Shadow Guards causing trouble in the imperial city. The situation was very critical. Unless everyone could work together to defeat Chu Wen, there was no chance of turning the situation around. Even if the disciples of the Qingyuan sect and Chu Tianyang's iron-armored army stubbornly defended to the death, it was useless. The fall of the imperial city was only a matter of time. You're courting death. Seeing that Su Tianxing was unwilling to surrender, Chu Wen's face also flashed a trace of ruthlessness. He then raised his hand and blasted towards the other party. The majestic palm instantly cut through the air, bringing with it an ear-piercing sound. Bang! Boom! In the blink of an eye, the origin energy palm attacked rapidly. Chu Tianyang, who was on the side, suddenly took a step forward. At the same time, his right hand suddenly blasted out, instantly shattering the origin energy palm into nothingness. Chu won. I'm your opponent, after blocking Chu Wen's attack with one blow. Chu Tianyang's face was also solemn. At the same time, his figure flashed and protected Su Tianxing and the others behind him. Your Majesty, Su Tianxing's face was filled with surprise. He wanted to say something, but stopped. He seemed to be shocked by the strength of the other party. After all, as the emperor of the Dacha dynasty, although Chu Tianyang's strength was not comparable to a first-level martial master, he was not much weaker. Go quickly. With a solemn face, Chu Tianyang secretly transmitted his voice to Su Tianxing, but his eyes were still fixed on Chu Wen. Although his origin energy cultivation was only at the half-step martial master realm, Chu Tianyang cultivated the Chu clan's inherited cultivation method, the atmospheric morality technique. This cultivation method was as high as the 5th grade, and it could temporarily increase one's strength by burning one's soul. It could even be comparable to a first-level martial master. Therefore, Chu Tianyang was also prepared to die in this battle. Even if he could not defeat Chu Wen, he could temporarily stall Chu Wen in front of him. At the same time, he could buy some time for Su Tianxing and the others to leave the imperial city. Tianxing, I'm begging you, go quickly. Immediately take Jiuxing and Qian, and leave the imperial city. The further the better. Chu Tianyang transmitted his voice to Su Tianxing again. In the next moment, wisps of majestic origin energy gushed out from Chu Tianyang's body. His aura was not inferior to Chu Wen's, and for a moment, they were evenly matched. Chapter 236. Elders of the Qingyuan sect, retreat. Looking at the imposing Chu Tianyang in front of him, Su Tianxing understood that the other party was determined to die. He immediately gritted his teeth and shouted. In the next moment, he turned around and rushed down the city gate. The few Qingyuan sect elders beside him also followed closely behind, as if they had been granted amnesty. Chu Wen was a genuine LV-1 martial master expert. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens for Chu Tianyang to defeat him. Su Tianxing was also very clear about this. If he did not seize the time to retreat, he would not be able to escape when the other party was free or when the rebels of the Iron Armor Army entered the imperial city. Chu Tianyang, do you really think you can still beat me like before? Glancing at Su Tianxing and the others who retreated in panic, Chu Wen unexpectedly did not stop them again. Instead, he looked at Chu Tianyang and said coldly. Although Chu Tianyang had always suppressed him in terms of Yuan power cultivation before, it was different now. Chu Wen's Yuan power cultivation had successfully stepped into the LV-1 martial master realm, and his strength had also leaped to become the strongest person in the Dacha dynasty. Chu Wen, I was only afraid of your ambition before, but I didn't expect you to hide it so deeply. It seems that you have long coveted the throne of the great Chu Emperor. Under the dragon robe, Chu Tianyang clenched his fists. In the next moment, he also spat out a mouthful of turbid air. His dark eyes flashed with a cold light. He cultivated the unique cultivation method of the royal family, the atmospheric morality technique. Not only was this cultivation method as high as the 5th grade, but it also paid attention to the balance of offense and defense. It was very suitable for a long battle. This was also the reason why Chu Tianyang dared to stay behind alone to resist Chu Wen. The throne of the great Chu Emperor was originally mine. I'm just taking back what belongs to me. How can I covet it? Chu Tianyang die? In the face of Chu Tianyang's berating, Chu Wen's face was also slightly angry. In the next moment, he waved his sleeve and blasted out another palm. The palm energy was mixed with rolling Yuan power and instantly condensed into a huge Yuan power palm. There was a faint howl of a hurricane in the palm, like a tornado. Break! The attack came quickly. At this time, Chu Tianyang's eyes were also slightly cold. He also circulated the Yuan power in his body and raised his hand to meet the incoming Yuan power palm head-on. Bang! Rumble! As the wind howled, the giant Yuan energy palm and Chu Tianyang's fist fiercely collided. Immediately, a deafening explosion was heard, and in the next moment, the remaining power of the Yuan energy dissipated. Chu Tianyang's face flushed red, and a trace of blood involuntarily seeped out from the corner of his mouth. It seemed that he had suffered quite a bit of loss from taking this palm head-on. The gap between the half-step martial minute realm and the real LV1 martial minute realm is still too big. Chu Tianyang had fallen into a disadvantage in this exchange. Borrowing the force of the recoil, he dodged to the side with a grave expression. Chu Tianyang, you are no match for me. Based on our past brotherly relationship, if you are willing to give up the throne, cripple your cultivation, and break the tendons in your arms and legs, I can consider sparing your worthless life. After defeating Chu Tianyang with one palm, the corners of Chu Wen's mouth curled up. His expression was fierce. He had only used 50% of his strength in that palm. With his current cultivation and strength, killing Chu Tianyang, who was at the half-step to martial master realm, was only a matter of minutes. Chu Wen, you are too arrogant. Once again glancing at the aggressive Chu Wen, Chu Tianyang frowned. In the next moment, he actually changed from defense to offense. His body shot out toward his opponent. Losing the throne was nothing to him. However, crippling his cultivation was equivalent to becoming a cripple. Then, he could only be trampled on and humiliated by others. Therefore, Chu Tianyang naturally could not accept it. He would rather fight to the death. This guy seems to have just broken through not long ago. His origin power realm has yet to be consolidated. I might be able to stall him and buy time for Su Tianxing, Jiuxing, and Xian'er to escape from the imperial city. Chu Tianyang secretly urged in his heart. At this moment, Chu Tianyang had also activated the atmospheric morality technique to the extreme. After these few exchanges, he had already noticed that although Chu Wen's attacks were fierce and powerful, there was a faint trace of weakness. It was obvious that he had just broken through to the LV1 martial minute realm. Then let me see how much ability you have. When Chu Wen saw that Chu Tianyang had not retreated and was instead charging towards him, Chu Wen smiled instead of getting angry. It was as if he had already expected this. He immediately flew up to meet Chu Tianyang. Strands of majestic Yuan power once again gathered in his palms, giving off an imposing aura. In the inner city of the Imperial City, outside the Imperial Palace, a shocking battle broke out again. Imperial City, outside the Palace Gate. Sect Master, what should we do? Do we really have to use the power of the entire sect to fight against Prince Jin? Chu Wen, landing on the ground. A Qingyuan sect elder looked uneasy and looked at Su Tianxing in front of him at the same time. Although they had escaped from the central square, the situation in the Imperial City was still tense. The news of Prince Jin, Chu Wen, leading an army to the city had spread inside and outside the Imperial City. Chaos and fighting were inevitable. The Qingyuan sect was only one of the 9 ranks of the great families. Although its power was not weak, it was impossible to resist Prince Jin's Iron Armor Army and many martial arts experts with the power of a single sect. Moreover, Chu Wen himself was an LV1 martial minute realm expert. If they insisted on stubbornly resisting to the end, the Qingyuan sect was likely to face the disaster of sect destruction. The entire sect would be flattened. I have been entrusted by His Majesty. How can I abandon him and flee alone? And don't forget that His Majesty is still fighting with Prince Jin, Chu Wen, in the palace. The rebel army outside the city is at the city gate. If we surrender without a fight, we will be ridiculed by the world in the future. With a serious face, Su Tianxing shook his head in the face of the persuasion of the Qingyuan sect elder. Sect Master, you have to think twice. Although we work for the imperial family, we are still a sect force. If we use the power of the entire Qingyuan sect for this internal battle, the Qingyuan sect will suffer heavy losses and the foundation left by our ancestors will be destroyed. No matter who wins the battle in the end, it won't benefit the Qingyuan sect much. We should play it safe and wait to see what happens. Sect Master, please be wise. Seeing that Su Tianxing was still stubborn, another white-haired elder of the Qingyuan sect stepped forward, cupped his hands, and exhorted. Unlike the former, he was acting in the interest of the Qingyuan sect and was not concerned about the internal strife between Chu Tianyang and Chu Wen. Do I really have to do this? I have no intention of doing this. Glancing at the elders of the Qingyuan sect beside him, Su Tianxing's face turned ugly. He then sighed softly and seemed to be a little shaken by the persuasion of the crowd. Sect Master Su, no matter what decision you make, my father and I will not blame you. But I only ask you one thing. Just as Su Tianxing and the elders of the Qingyuan sect were hesitating, a faint male voice came from not far away. The next moment, a young man in a blue brocade robe flew over with a determined face. It was the Crown Prince, Chu Jiuxing. Chapter 237. Your Highness the Crown Prince. Seeing that the person in front of them was Chu Jiuxing, Su Tianxing and the surrounding Qingyuan sect elders were stunned for a moment and exclaimed. Ever since King Jin, Chu Wen, appeared in the sky above the imperial city, the finals of the World Hero competition had been hastily interrupted and ended without a conclusion. The disciples of the various forces and rogue cultivators who participated in the competition had fled for their lives. The scene was chaotic. For a moment, no one noticed where Crown Prince Chu Jiuxing had gone. Chu Jiuxing's expression was solemn, and there was a faint trace of tiredness on his handsome face. It was as if he had just experienced an intense battle, and the Yuan energy aura on his body was fluctuating. Your Highness the Crown Prince, are you injured? Seeing that Chu Jiuxing's robe was a little dirty and his Yuan Qi aura was unstable, Su Tianxing hurriedly stepped forward and comforted him. Although the elders of the Qingyuan sect around him had been advising him not to intervene in the royal family's internal strife, the scene of Chu Tianyang's life being entrusted to him still lingered in his mind. As a subject of the great Chu, Su Tianxing felt deeply uneasy and guilty at the thought of this. I'm fine. Facing Su Tianxing's concern, Chu Jiuxing shook his head and smiled bitterly. Sect Master Su, I only hope that you can take good care of my sister. Don't let her get involved in this battle, and take her away from the imperial city. Your Highness, hearing this, Su Tianxing's face instantly turned serious. He seemed to understand something, but he could not speak for a long time. Chu Jiuxing in front of him was obviously determined to die. He would not bow his head to the rebellious King Jin, Chu Wen. He was prepared to defend the imperial city with his father, Chu Tianyang, and at the same time protect the last dignity and prestige of the imperial family. Sect Master, I hope you can make a decision soon. Looking at the silent Su Tianxing, a Qingyuan sect elder next to him also boldly asked in a hurried tone. Obviously, he also knew that the situation was very critical and there was no time to hesitate. After all, the army outside the imperial city was already pressing in, and the tens of thousands of soldiers under King Jin's command were almost at the gates. Meanwhile, the steel army responsible for guarding the imperial city was a group of dragons without a leader. Without the leadership of Emperor Chu Tianyang, the steel army would find it very difficult to muster enough strength to defend the capital. At the same time, the palace experts who were in charge of monitoring the Jin Palace also suffered heavy losses. They fought with the shadow guards who had already infiltrated the imperial city, and the battle was equally intense. It was impossible for them to split their strength to protect the safety of the Chu clan's disciples. Crown Prince, please leave the imperial city with me. I will be responsible for protecting you and Princess Lu Yuan. Su Tianxing clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. At the same time, he knelt on one knee before Chu Jiuxing. He seemed to have made up his mind. Sect Leader Su. Seeing this scene, Chu Jiuxing's expression changed slightly. He was clearly surprised. After all, his identity was special, and it was very easy for him to be targeted by the rebel army and the shadow guards under Chu Wen. Once the imperial city was breached, he would be hunted down by all sides. Su Tianqing had made up his mind to escort him and Chu Qian out of the imperial city, so the burden on his shoulders was naturally not small. It was likely that he would be besieged by many powerful enemies, and it was still unknown whether he could break out of the encirclement. Sect Master. The Qingyuan sect elders paled at Su Tianqing's harsh words. It was clear that they did not want to get involved in this matter. Although the Chu clan has not treated the Qingyuan sect well in these past years, we have never harmed a single Qingyuan sect disciple. Moreover, His Majesty has entrusted his life to us, so Su Tianqing am naturally not an ungrateful person. No matter what, I will escort the crown prince and princess safely out of the city, even if I have to sacrifice my life. As for the few of you, you don't have to persuade me anymore. If you are afraid of death, you can leave the Qingyuan sect on your own. I, Su Tianqing, will not stop you. Su Tianqing said solemnly after glancing at the Qingyuan sect elders around him. As soon as he finished speaking, the elders of the Qingyuan sect were at a loss of what to do and fell into silence. Godfather, I support your decision. What you said is right. If you don't talk about morality, then you don't deserve to be called a martial artist. Just as everyone was silent, a young man's weak voice slowly came from behind. The next moment, Su Sun slowly walked toward everyone. His footsteps were a little staggered. His arms and chest were wrapped in layers of white bandages. It seemed that the injuries from the fierce battle had not fully recovered. Su Sun, you are awake. Seeing that it was Su Sun, a white-haired, gray-robed Qingyuan sect elder hurriedly stepped forward to support him, frowning slightly. Although Su Sun won the battle with Ren Jianan, his injuries were not light, and he soon fell into a deep sleep. Su Tianqing and many Qingyuan sect elders also temporarily placed Su Sun somewhere in the imperial city. They would go back to find him after dealing with the imperial family's affairs, but they did not expect him to wake up so quickly. Thank you, elders, for your concern. I am fine. At most, my injuries will be completely healed in another 2 to 4 hours. Qin Yuan martial spirit method plus my pure yang body. This injury won't take my life. Waving his hand, Su Sun, who looked a little weak, smiled faintly. Then, he looked at Chu Jiuxing opposite him and said, Your Highness Crown Prince, I have always regarded you as an opponent to catch up with. I originally thought that we could have a good fight today, but I didn't expect this to happen. Like Su Tianqing and the others, Su Sun was also very shocked by the rebellion of King Jin Chu I and the suppression of the Iron-Armored Army. It took a long time for him to recover. Moreover, no one would have thought that Chu I, who had been hiding his strength for many years, would grow to such an extent that even Chu Tianyang was no match for him. It's not just you. I also didn't expect Royal Uncle to be so ambitious to do such a disobedient thing. It seems that from the beginning, he hated Royal Father for being able to ascend the throne, and he has never let go of this hatred in his heart. Hearing this, Chu Jiuxing also smiled bitterly and shook his head. Now, that Chu Wen's cultivation had broken through to the first level of the martial master realm. Although Chu Tianyang could delay him for some time in the palace, he was still no match for him. Therefore, Crown Prince Chu Jiuxing was very clear in his heart that as long as he could send Chu Qian out of the imperial city, it would be considered as preserving the last bloodline of the Chu clan. There's no time to lose. There must be many shadow guards lurking in the city. I heard that these guys are all very powerful and are Chu Wen's most trusted subordinates. If we want to break through, we will inevitably encounter these guys. Nodding, Su Tianqing also spoke. Since he had already said that he would escort Chu Jiuxing and Chu Qian safely out of the imperial city, he naturally wouldn't just say it without doing it. Sect Master, should we send a pigeon and call for reinforcement from the sect? Now that His Highness Crown Prince and Su Sun are both injured, it will be difficult for us to break through the pursuit of shadow guards. Hearing this, one of the younger Qingyuan sect elders also spoke. Although they were very afraid of death, they were not men without courage. After Su Sun and Su Tianqing's passionate words, they immediately reignited the fire in their hearts and decided to follow Su Tianqing's decision. Moreover, This time they were only escorting Chu Jiuxing and Chu Qian out of the imperial city. What happened to them next would not involve the Qingyuan sect. Therefore, as long as they were not discovered by Chu Wan, their Qingyuan sect still had a lot of room to maneuver and would not face the disaster of sect destruction. Chapter 238. You're right. I heard that the shadow guards under Chu Wan are all martial artist masters. The weakest one is above the first level of High Star Realm, but now the Imperial City has been surrounded by the rebels of the Iron Armor Army. Even if we call the sect's disciples and elders to the Imperial City for support, they will be intercepted by the rebels outside the city. They can't enter the city at all, and there will inevitably be a large number of casualties. Hearing this, Su Tianxing frowned slightly. He obviously felt that the risk was too great and did not intend to order for help. At present, there were only 4 or 5 elders of the Qingyuan sect following him. Except for some of the participating disciples, the rest of the elders and disciples of the Qingyuan sect were still in the mountain gate of the Qingyuan sect. The mountain gate of the Qingyuan sect was about 1,000 miles away from the imperial city. Even if they sent a pigeon to call for reinforcements, it would take at least 1 day and 1 night to arrive at the imperial city. Judging from the current situation inside and outside the imperial city, Su Tianxing could not wait until then. The imperial city would be captured by the rebels of the Iron Armor Army and the remnants of the shadow guards in the city. Moreover, the imperial city had been surrounded by the rebels. Even if there were reinforcements, it would be difficult to break through the encirclement. Under such circumstances, Su Tianxing and the others could only rely on their own strength to escort Chu Jiuxing and Chu Qian out of the city. Life and death are ruled by fate. What bullshit shadow guards, they are just a bunch of lackeys. Foster father, elders, all of you are veteran experts who have been immersed in the High Star Realm for many years. Why should you be afraid of these so-called dark shadow guard lackeys? As long as they dare to stop you, then just kill your way out. Next to him, Su Sun was very decisive. He immediately snorted coldly. His face, which had recovered some color, showed some viciousness. Brother Su Sun is right. When this crown prince came to look for you, I fought with the shadow guards under Chu Wan. Fortunately, they didn't have many people at that time, only a small team of 7 or 8 people. These guys' tentacles have already touched the palace, and they must have been lurking for a long time. As for this crown prince, it was only after killing several of them that I was able to escape. Nodding, Chu Jiuxing immediately took out a 3rd-grade healing pill from the spirit ring on his finger and swallowed it. He then explained that he had also experienced a great battle before and barely escaped from the imperial palace. There are even shadow guards near the palace. As soon as Chu Jiuxing's voice fell, Su Tianxing also frowned. He was obviously a little surprised. After all, the palace was the most heavily guarded place in the entire imperial city. There were experts in charge of patrolling everywhere, and there were also hidden sentries. It could be said that there were layers of defense. These experts were different from the ordinary soldiers of the imperial court. All of them were powerful warriors. They were usually in charge of protecting the Chu clan and the imperial family. Most of them were in the High Star Realm, similar to the assassin organization under Chu Wan, the Shadow Squad. However, the Shadow Guards under Chu Wan were able to infiltrate such a heavily guarded palace. It was enough to show how serious the situation in the imperial city was. It was estimated that in less than a day, the entire imperial city would be enveloped by Chu Wan's forces. Where are the experts in charge of guarding the palace? Did they all betray his majesty? In the face of Chu Jiuxing's explanation, a Qingyuan sect elder next to him also said in disbelief. After all, these experts were not weak. Unless Chu Wan personally took action, it was difficult for anyone to avoid so many eyes and ears and sneak into the palace. I'm not too sure, but what I'm sure of is that except for a small number of people who surrendered, most of the experts loyal to the imperial family have died in battle. And those civil and military officials are probably controlled by Lin Feng and the people of the pavilion of Princeton. The situation is grim. With a bitter smile, Chu Jiuxing also said with a bitter expression. These guys are really ruthless. It seems that they have a plan. Hearing this, Su Sun's expression also changed slightly. Then, he let out a deep breath. His tone was somewhat complicated. After all, these experts in charge of guarding the palace were all high-star realm martial artists. They were not weak, but they were still unable to resist the attack of the Shadow Guards. Most of them died in battle. It's useless to say more. Your Highness, let's take action now. The current situation was critical, and there was not much time left for them to think of countermeasures. Therefore, Su Tianxing also decided to immediately kill his way out of the imperial city. Okay, but before that, I have to go to the princess mansion. If there is no accident, Qian'er should still be trapped in the mansion. I have to rescue her and leave the city together. Secmaster Su, what about you? Nodding, Chu Jiuxing also looked at Su Tianxing and the others opposite him and said sincerely, "No problem. I promised His Majesty that I would send you and the princess safely out of the imperial city. Lu Song, you are responsible for arranging the remaining Qingyuan sect disciples and waiting for an opportunity to leave the city. If the rebel army enters the city, you can surrender if you have no choice but to protect yourself." Nodding slightly, Su Tianxing turned his head to look at a white-robed old man next to him and solemnly instructed. After all, this operation was very dangerous. Other than the Qingyuan sect elders in front of him, Su Tianxing did not want other Qingyuan sect disciples to intervene in this matter to avoid causing huge casualties. After all, these Qingyuan sect disciples were the elites of the sect in the future. Sect Master, please rest assured. Facing Su Tianxing's order, the white-robed old man named Lu Song also cupped his hands and hurriedly left. Your Highness, let's move. Let's go. Seeing Lu Song leave, Su Tianxing also breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. He then looked at Chu Jiuxing again, and Chu Jiuxing also nodded slightly. There was a touch of determination in his eyes, as if he was a warrior who would never return. At the same time, just as Chu Jiuxing, Su Tianxing, and the others began to move, the shocking battle between Chu Wan and Chu Tianyang continued. For a time, the entire central square was shrouded by a powerful Yuan power aura. Warriors below the high-star realm could not even take half a step closer to the surrounding area. They would be repelled by this Yuan power aura and even be seriously injured. Break! In midair, Chu Tianyang's face was determined and his eyebrows were furrowed. The next moment, his right hand suddenly blasted forward. Wisps of majestic Yuan power instantly condensed into a red, blazing fireball in the palm of his hand. The blazing fireball seemed to be a powerful martial art. At the same time, it fiercely smashed toward Chu when on the opposite side. Celestial Mystic Fire Palm? Chu Tianyang, Father, that old guy really taught you all the essence of the atmospheric morality technique. Why? I, Chu Wan, am obviously more talented and stronger than you. In the face of the blazing fireball flying toward him, Chu Wan also narrowed his eyes slightly. The next moment, his face turned furious, as if some kind of taboo in his heart had been violated. Chapter 239. Break! Chu Wan roared angrily once again as Yuan power surged all over his body. After which, he threw a punch directly at the incoming blazing fireball. Boom! A majestic martial master's origin energy instantly erupted. In a single exchange, it destroyed the blazing fireball and turned it into nothingness. Following the disappearance of the blazing fireball, the temperature in the air suddenly dropped and returned to normal. Although he had destroyed Chu Tianyang's attack with a punch, the resentment on Chu Wen's face did not decrease. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Chu Tianyang. He was originally the most talented person in the Chu royal family. However, because he was the second son, he could not ascend to the throne and could only become a small prince. Chu Tianyang was the eldest son of the royal family. Even if his talent was weaker than his, he could still ascend to the throne. Chu had originally wanted to rely on his campaigns to gain merit for the Dacha dynasty and reverse the situation. However, The final result was still unrelated to him. The previous emperor of the Chu dynasty still passed the throne to his elder brother, Chu Tianyong. No matter how hard he worked for the Chu royal family in the imperial court, even if he controlled one of the imperial court's iron armor corps, he was still only a prince. Moreover, he was constantly being watched and feared by Chu Tianyong. Chu Tianyong was eager to eliminate all his subordinates and henchmen. Due to all these reasons, Chu had long since planted the thought of rebellion in his heart. He was determined to take over the Chu dynasty and become the new emperor of the Dacha dynasty. Chu 1. Do you know why father was not willing to pass the throne to you? Chu Tianyong did not attack again after his attack was broken. Instead, he landed on the ground below and tore off the purple gold dragon robe on his body, revealing his strong muscles and forelimbs. His aura rose once again, as if he was planning to go all out. After these few exchanges, the purple gold dragon robe he wore was already in tatters. Most of it had been destroyed by the remnants of Yuan power. Moreover, wearing a long robe in battle greatly affected his ability to display his strength. Thus, Chu Tianyong chose to go into battle lightly. Why? Isn't it because you're the eldest son? The ancestral teachings of the Dachu dynasty. Hearing this, Chu coldly smiled in the sky. Soon after, he also landed on the ground and faced Chu Tianyong from a distance. His expression was fierce, as if he felt that Chu Tianyong was already a caged beast that could not escape from his grasp. Your talent and strength is indeed above me, your big brother. Imperial father has also seen this back then. However, your ambition is too great. With your cruelty and warmongering, there will come a day when the Chu clan and the Dachu dynasty will be destroyed. If only you could have changed a little back then and be more benevolent and righteous, perhaps things wouldn't have turned out this way. Chu Tianyong shook his head and said, Nonsense. You're just like that damned old man. No matter if it's back then or now, you're still as hypocritical as ever. What kind of bullsh asterisk tea is this? In this world, only the strong are respected. No one can control what I Chu and do. Chu Tianyong, cut the crap. Today is your doomsday. In the face of Chu Tianyong's rebuttal, Chu Wen's face darkened. He angrily roared, and in the next moment, his figure once again charged towards his opponent. Big Dipper mysterious fire palm. Yuan power surged all over his body. Facing the rapidly approaching Chu Tianyong also shouted loudly. At the same time, his entire body's muscles swelled several times, as if they contained endless Yuan power energy. In the next moment, he raised his hand and blasted out a palm. Swoosh! Rumble! Accompanied by an ear-piercing sound, an incomparably huge, blazing fireball instantly condensed and met the rapidly approaching Chu head-on. One could vaguely see that the center of the blazing fireball was burning with boiling origin power. The remaining origin power emitted from the fireball was so powerful that even martial artists below the Star Realm didn't dare to take half a step forward. It was also a quasi-level 5 martial art, and its power was astonishing. Even if you've cultivated the atmospheric morality technique to the point of perfection, it's useless in the face of absolute strength. Seeing Chu Tianyong's attack coming, Chu coldly snorted. At the same time, his figure did not retreat. Instead, his left hand suddenly stretched forward. In the next moment, an astonishing wave of Yuan power also swept out from his body. In an instant, it condensed into a pitch-black sharp spear. At the same time, the tip of the spear flickered with cold light. Kill! With a furious roar, in the next moment, the pitch-black spear in Chu Tianyong's hand shot out. Immediately, a gust of wind whistled through the air, and the blazing fireball that Chu Tianyong had shot out also collapsed upon contact. It was actually pierced through by the pitch-black spear in an instant, and then shattered into nothingness. What? Seeing that his attack was broken, Chu Tianyong's face was also greatly shocked. His Big Dipper mysterious fire palm was a quasi-grade 5 martial art. At the same time, it was also the strongest killing move of the atmospheric morality technique that he cultivated. However, He never expected that it was still unable to withstand a casual attack from Chuan. Bang! Pucci. The remaining power of the pitch-black spear did not decrease. In the next moment, it ruthlessly pierced into Chu Tianyang's right arm. The protective yuan power instantly dissipated, and Chu Tianyang's figure was also rapidly pushed back. At the same time, he suddenly spat out a large mouthful of blood, and his entire aura suddenly fell to the bottom. Drip, drip, drops of scalding blood flowed down from his right arm. Chu Tianyang's face was as gloomy as stagnant water. The pitch-black spear that was formed from yuan power had already completely shattered the meridians and bones in his right arm. Although he had barely managed to preserve his life, it was very obvious that his arm was crippled. Chu Tianyang, back then, that old fellow royal father really doted on you. Not only did he pass on the entire essence of the atmospheric morality technique to you, he even left me with an incomplete version. No matter how much I cultivate this technique, its power will not exceed grade 4. What a good plan. After seriously injuring Chu Tianyang with one blow, Chuan's figure also flashed. He stepped across the air and arrived in front of Chu Tianyang. At the same time, there was a trace of ridicule in his tone, as if the anger and resentment in his heart had slightly diminished after seeing the other party in such a miserable state. So what? Even if I die, I will not let you have your way so easily. In the face of Chu Wen's ridicule, the seriously injured Chu Tianyang smiled miserably. In the next instant, a glint flashed across his eyes. At the same time, the aura of his entire body soared once again and was several times stronger than before. At the same time, this majestic aura also forced Chu Wen back again. Soul Ignition Secret Art. It seems that you have indeed gone crazy. Yuan power instantly condensed into a pair of wings. Chu Wen's figure also soared into the sky, avoiding the impact of this majestic aura. At the same time, there was some astonishment in Chu Tianyang's eyes as he looked down at the ground below. In the next instant, his eyes turned cold and emotionless. Rip! Accompanied by the ear-piercing sound of cloth being torn, the seriously injured Chu Tianyang had actually forcibly cut off his already crippled right arm. His figure then staggered to his feet, and the color of blood once again appeared on his originally extremely pale face. At the same time, his pair of eyes also became incomparably blood-red. His aura and yuan power instantly became extremely berserk and crazy. Chapter 240. Soul-Burning Mystic Technique. It was one of the strongest trump cards of the atmospheric morality technique. It was several times more powerful than the celestial fire palm. The martial artist who used the soul-burning mystic technique could increase his strength several times in a short period of time. However, the soul-burning mystic technique consumed the martial artist's soul power and was extremely risky. After all, martial artists were also ordinary humans. No matter how much they cultivated their yuan power, they could not make up for the damage to their mind and soul power. Once their soul power was severely damaged or consumed, it would reduce their lifespan and kill them on the spot. Even the gods could not save them. Therefore, when he saw Chu Tianyang use the soul-burning mystic technique of the atmospheric morality technique, Chu Wen was slightly surprised. After all, it was obvious that Chu Tianyang was prepared to die. Moreover, as a former member of the royal family, Chu Wen had also cultivated the atmospheric morality technique. Although it was incomplete, he also knew the power and drawbacks of the soul-burning mystic technique. After Chu Tianyang used the soul-burning mystic technique, he might not be able to defeat Chu Wen, who was a level 1 martial master. Even if Chu Tianyang won in the end, his soul power would be greatly weakened under the backlash of the soul-burning mystic technique. It was only a matter of time before he died. Although I die today, I am still the Emperor of Great Chu. Chu Wen, your conspiracy will not succeed unless you step over my dead body. After using the soul ignition secret technique, Chu Tianyang's aura and origin energy fluctuations increased by several times. Similarly, he had reached the level of LV1 Martial Master, the same level as Chu went in the sky. What a joke. You're just a LV1 martial master. How can you defeat me? Hearing this, Chu Wen in the sky laughed wildly, his face full of disdain. Although Chu Tianyang's Yuan Qi cultivation had soared to level 1 martial master, he still relied on the power of the soul ignition secret technique. Furthermore, there was a time limit to it, and he could only maintain it for less than an hour. He was no match for an authentic level 1 martial master. Therefore, this was also the reason why Chu Wen was not afraid. As long as the time limit of the soul-burning mystic technique was over, Chu Tianyang, whose soul power had been greatly damaged, would not be able to withstand a single blow. Furthermore, Chu Tianyang in front of him had one arm crippled, so his strength was limited. Swoosh! A pair of Yuan power wings instantly formed behind Chu Tianyang. In the next moment, Chu Tianyang's figure soared into the sky. After his cultivation had temporarily reached the first level of the martial master realm, even he had grasped the ability to fly for a short period of time. It was enough for him to fight Chu Wen in the sky. You overestimate yourself. This king will seriously play with you and let you see what a true martial master is. In the clouds in the sky, Chu Wen grinned coldly as he watched Chu Tianyang charge over in an imposing manner. A cruel and merciless look appeared in his sinister eyes. Although he and Chu Tianyang belonged to the same clan, they were not related by blood. Chu Tianyang was the son of the first wife of the previous Chu emperor, and although Chu Wen was the second son, he was only the second son of a minor concubine in the imperial harem. Thus, Chu Wen had hated this so-called big brother of his since childhood. Why was it that Chu Tianyang was born with everything? Why did he have to lower himself and be a subject for the rest of his life? Chu Wen was extremely unwilling. Black poison hand. Chu Wen abruptly stretched out his right hand. His entire palm had actually turned pitch black like ink, causing others to feel a chill run down their spines. In the next moment, he'd actually forcefully crushed the blazing fireball that was assaulting him. After that, his origin energy scattered and dispersed before completely transforming into nothingness. Celestial Mystic Fire Palm. Chu Tianyang didn't give Chu Wen a chance to catch his breath. After his attack failed, Chu Tianyang let out another fierce shout. At the same time, he raised his hand and gathered surging crimson yuan power. Once again, he blasted out dozens of blazing fireballs that flew towards Chu Wen in the sky. I must hold on until Jiuxing and Qian leave the imperial city. As long as the siblings are still alive, the Chu clan still has hope. Yelling in his heart, Chu Tianyang's attacks became even more violent. Like a reckless man, he madly attacked Chu Wen in the sky. Chu Wen's yuan power cultivation was at the first level of the martial master realm. Once the time limit of the soul ignition secret technique passed, he would no longer have any power to fight back. Thus, Chu Tianyang also madly attacked his opponent, intending to end the battle quickly. In the imperial city, in the princess mansion, although it was silent, danger lurked everywhere. Uncle Fong, what happened? Hurry up and tell me. Chu Qian's pretty face was solemn. She then looked at Fong Xiao in front of her and spoke with an anxious tone. Although many major events had happened in the imperial city, the imperial palace had been occupied by the Shadow Squad and the pavilion of Prince Tong, and the rebel army of the Iron Armor Regiment had arrived outside the city. She knew nothing about any of this. Ever since the end of the martial tea gathering, Chu Qian had gone into seclusion and only came out today. Miss, something big has happened. Your imperial uncle, Prince Jin, Chu Wen, has rebelled. With a sigh, Fong Zhao's old face was bitter as he shook his head. Imperial uncle rebelled? He actually dared to commit such a heinous crime. Hearing this, Chu Qian's expression changed drastically. She bit her lips as if she couldn't believe it. Yes, at first, this old servant also couldn't believe it, but this is absolutely true. According to the news from this old servant's subordinates, the imperial palace is currently in chaos. There are people from the pavilion of Prince Tong and the Shadow Squad everywhere, and the emperor is currently fighting with Chu Wen. As for the outcome, no one knows for sure. Miss, The Imperial City has become extremely unsafe, and the rebel army of the Iron Armor Regiment is eyeing it covetously. It's only a matter of time before the Imperial City falls. This old servant feels that it's not good to stay here any longer. We should leave as soon as possible. Feng Xiao nodded with a solemn expression and said, as a veteran high-star realm martial artist, although he didn't participate in the earth-shattering battle between Chu Wen and Chu Tianyang, the aftershock of the battle between the two still spread in all directions. Even from afar, he could feel the invisible pressure and might. Chu Wen had already stepped into the first level of the martial master realm, and his strength was like the sun in the sky. It was only a matter of time before Chu Tianyang was defeated. Therefore, they had to leave the Imperial City immediately in order to have a chance to make a comeback. At the same time, they had to preserve the last trace of the great Chu imperial family's bloodline. Moreover, two fists were no match for four hands. Although Feng Xiao had many martial experts guarding the Princess Mansion, the Iron Armor Regiment in charge of guarding the Imperial City had lost their leader. Without Chu Tianyang's leadership, these people were unable to gather their full strength. At the same time, the experts in the Imperial Palace had all died, so no one could stop the rebel army from entering the city. In addition, the Shadow Squad under Chu Wen, as well as the traitorous Lin Feng and the Pavilion of Prince Tung, were not ordinary people. If the various forces pursued Chu Qian and the other members of the imperial family with all their might, even with the protection of Feng Xiao and the others, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens for Chu Qian to leave the imperial city safely. No, now that Imperial Father is in trouble, this princess can't leave even more. Moreover, the Imperial Palace has already been occupied by the 9th rank sect of the Pavilion of Prince Tung and the Shadow Guard. This means that Imperial Mother is in an extremely dangerous situation. How can this princess leave them alone? That would be unfilial. Facing Feng Zhao's advice, Chu Qian's pretty face flushed red. Her eyes faintly revealed a look of resentment, as if she was unwilling to leave and be a coward. Chapter 241. Miss, why don't you? Seeing that Chu Qian was unwilling to leave, Feng Zhao's face was filled with worry. A trace of bitterness appeared on his old face. The other party was the eldest daughter of Emperor Chu Tianyang and had a noble status. He had always been favored by the emperor. Ever since he left his position as the commander of a steel corps, he had been protecting Chu Qian under Chu Tianyang's orders. Currently, Emperor Chu Tianyang's life was unknown, and Crown Prince Chu Jiuxing's whereabouts was unknown. If he could not protect Chu Qian and preserve the last trace of the Dachu dynasty's bloodline, Feng Xiao would not be able to forgive himself. Since you don't want to leave, then leave your life behind. Just as Feng Xiao was about to persuade her again, a cold and emotionless man's voice came faintly from the distance. It was like a death reaper from hell. Who is it? As soon as the voice fell, Feng Zhao's expression changed drastically. At the same time, he looked at the roof above a courtyard in the residence. It seemed that the source of the voice came from that direction. The person who will take your lives. A tall figure appeared on the roof above the courtyard. It was a middle-aged man with a cold face and sinister eyes. At this moment, he was wearing a black martial robe with a sharp black dagger hanging from his waist. His entire body was filled with murderous intent. It was obvious that he was a ruthless person whose hands were stained with countless lives. High Star Realm 10th level. Looking at the black-robed, middle-aged man who suddenly appeared in front of him, Feng Zhao's heart trembled, and his expression instantly turned serious. The other party was able to silently sneak into the princess's residence without being noticed by the other guards in the residence, as well as himself. His strength was definitely terrifying, and now that he had seen it with his own eyes, Feng Xiao was even more certain of his judgment. The origin power aura of the person in front of him was very powerful. He was also at the High Star Realm level, and he was not weaker than him. Although Feng Xiao had hidden injuries in his body in the past, his origin power cultivation had already reached the High Star Realm 9th level. Since this black-robed middle-aged man could suppress him in terms of aura, It was obvious that he had reached the high star realm 10th level. "Who are you, thief? How dare you trespass into the princess residence? Do you believe that this princess will order you to be arrested, brought to justice, and dismembered to death?" Chu Qian's face was furious at this moment when she saw that the black-robed middle-aged man had revealed his killing intent and was charging towards her. She immediately cried out in a lovely voice. Being the eldest princess, when had she ever endured such humiliation? She was actually threatened by an unknown warrior back then. "TSK, my adorable princess, do you really think that you're still the princess who's above everyone else? From today onwards, Lord Jin is the only emperor of the Dacha dynasty. As for you remnants of the previous dynasty, either kneel down and surrender or die." In the face of Chu Qian's reprimand, the black-robed, middle-aged man merely chuckled, after which his figure flashed and landed not far away from Fang Xiao and Chu Qian. His cold face revealed a thick disdain. Although this person's origin power cultivation base is at the 10th level of the star realm, 2 fists are ultimately no match for 4 hands. As long as the other guards of the princess residence arrive, I will have a chance to defeat or even kill him. Fang Xiao narrowed his eyes and stared intently at the black-robed, middle-aged man opposite him. He looked as if he was facing a great enemy. It seemed that he did not intend to make the first move, but was thinking of a countermeasure. "Old man, the guards in your residence have already been dealt with by my subordinates. If you want to wait for reinforcements, it's no different from a fool's dream." As if sensing Fang Xiao's intentions, the black-robed, middle-aged man immediately crossed his arms and said coldly, "What? They're all dead. You?" Hearing this, Fang Xiao could no longer remain calm. He instantly cried out in shock and anger, and his old face faintly trembled. Not only were the martial experts in charge of guarding the princess's residence his subordinates, but most of them were elites transferred from the Steel Corps and the Imperial Palace. Their strength was by no means ordinary, and they belonged to the top class. However, not only had such a group of powerful warriors all died in battle, but they had also died at the hands of this black-robed, middle-aged man in front of him. Moreover, they had died without his knowledge. How could this not shock Fang Xiao? Shadow Squad. Thinking of this, a terrifying thought emerged in Fang Xiao's heart. In the entire Chu dynasty, only King Jin's Chu's assassin organization, the Dark Shadow Squad, could have the strength to kill a group of top warriors without anyone noticing. Although there were a group of warriors hidden in the shadows guarding the princess residence, they were still no match for the Shadow Squad. All of the Shadow Squad were warriors above the Star Realm, and the black-robed, middle-aged man in front of him was even more unfathomable. Clearly, he was also a high-level figure in the Shadow Squad. "Old man, you've discovered me, but it's too late. Brothers, come out and send the guest off." Seeing that Fang Xiao had seen through his identity, the black-robed, middle-aged man sneered and waved his hand. Whoosh! 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 A few air-piercing sounds could be heard, and in the next moment, over 10 black-clothed men dressed in black assassin clothes flipped over the outer wall of the courtyard. They landed steadily and surrounded Fang Xiao and Chu Qian at the same time, filling the air with murderous intent. "You? How did you? How dare you? This princess will definitely order my father to kill you." Seeing this scene, the originally aggressive Chu Qian's pretty face changed slightly. Although her tone was still tough, her beautiful eyes revealed a rare look of fear. Although her cultivation was not weak and had reached the 5th level of the Star Realm, it was still difficult for her to fight against so many Shadow Squad. Moreover, apart from these Shadow Squad, the black-robed, middle-aged man in front of her was obviously more troublesome and powerful. After all, his cultivation was at the 10th level of the Star Realm, which was even stronger than Fang Xiao's. Since you're the Shadow Squad under King Jin's command, you must know the rules and where this place is. She is the current eldest princess, and she and King Jin, Chu I, are both members of the Chu imperial family. You have committed such a crime, trespassing into the princess's manor and starting a massacre. Aren't you afraid that His Majesty will investigate and your heads will roll? Looking at the group of murderous black-robed men in front of her, Feng Xiao frowned and shouted sternly. She seemed to want to use Chu Tianyang's name to intimidate the shadow squad in front of her. As her voice fell, a few of the shadow squad looked hesitant. In the next moment, they all looked at the black-robed, middle-aged man on the other side, as if waiting for his reaction. I, Wei Wuyan, have never been afraid of threats. Moreover, that guy Chu Tianyang can't even protect himself. Sooner or later, he will be dealt with by King Jin. Do you think you can scare us away with just a few words? Old man, you're too naive. Facing Feng Zhao's question, the black-robed middle-aged man named Wei Wuyan smiled and snorted coldly. His cold face was still filled with disdain. Chapter 242. Wei Wuyan. So it's you. You're the Shadow Guard Commander Wei Wuyan. Feng Zhao's expression changed drastically as soon as he finished speaking. His eyes were filled with shock. Not only was Wei Wuyan a 10th-level star realm martial artist, but he was also the commander of the Shadow Guards under Chu Wen's command. He was so powerful that he could be said to be second only to Chu Wen. Almost no one could control Wei Wuyan other than Chu Wen. Although most of the martial artists outside didn't know much about the Shadow Guard, Feng Xiao was different. As the former commander of the Steel Corps, he had heard a little about the Shadow Guard under Chu Wen's command. It was a taboo. The internal hierarchy of the Dark Shadow Guards was very strict. Aside from the low-level assassins, most of the members were divided into small teams. The members of each team were different, but they were all led by a martial artist at the 3rd level of the Star Realm or above. They were usually called the leader. Just like Xiahou Ba, whom Fei Run had met in Azure Sun County, Xiahou Ba was not only in charge of the intelligence of the Jin Mansion, but he was also a leader of the assassin organization, the Shadow Squad. Moreover, his seniority was not low, and he was ranked at the top of many leaders. Unlike the many leaders of the Dark Shadow Guards, the most powerful person in the Dark Shadow Guards was the Chief. The Chief was responsible for commanding all the assassins and members of the Dark Shadow Guards. Wei Wuyan was the famous Chief of the Dark Shadow Guards. In order to besiege the Princess Manor and capture and kill Chu Qian, Chu Wen had even released Wei Wuyan, the leader of the Shadow Guards. This was enough to show the decisiveness of his killing intent. He was determined to eliminate all of Chu Tianyang's descendants and not leave any future troubles. Prince Jin Chu Wen, I didn't expect you to not even let your own niece go. You're so cruel. Thinking of this, Feng Xiao felt a stab of pain in his heart. A chill ran down his spine. He seemed to have expected that he and Chu Qian would not be able to escape today. Cut the crap, old man. Today, not only the princess's mansion, but the entire Great Chu Imperial City will be bathed in blood. All of you attack. Wei Wuyan seemed to be unwilling to talk nonsense with Feng Xiao. The next moment, he waved his hand and gave the order. Kill. Just as Wei Wuyan gave the order, the surrounding Dark Shadow Squad assassins, who were eyeing them covetously, also swarmed forward. They circulated their origin energy and attacked Feng Xiao and Chu Qian, who were surrounded. For a moment, the sky was filled with a deafening, murderous aura. A bunch of damn dogs. Seeing the group of Dark Shadow Guards charging over, Feng Zhao's eyes widened in anger. His hands formed into palms as he continuously blasted out dozens of Yuan Qi palm forces, forcing a few Dark Shadow Guards who were charging towards him to retreat. In the next moment, his figure flickered and appeared in front of one of the Dark Shadow Guards like a ghost. You, die. The Dark Shadow Guard widened his eyes when he saw Feng Xiao suddenly appear in front of him. His voice was filled with terror. However, before he could make any sound, he was killed by Feng Xiao with a single palm strike. His entire head was shattered. Blood splattered in all directions as red and white matter scattered. Heaven-shattering spirit tiger palm. After killing one person with a single strike, Feng Zhao's attack did not slow down. Instead, he charged at another 2 Dark Shadow Guards. At the same time, his right hand transformed into a palm and blasted forward violently. Origin energy surged in his palm and immediately condensed into the image of a majestic spirit tiger. Roar! In an instant, the spirit tiger roared and wreaked havoc. The two dark shadow guards were unable to resist at all. They died tragically in a single exchange. They were torn to shreds by the spirit tiger's image and the residual power of the palm force. All that was left of them was a pool of blood that made one's heart palpitate. Although the two dark shadow guards' Yuan Qi cultivation had stepped into the high star realm, it was only between the second and third level of the high star realm. The gap between them and Feng Xiao was indeed too large. After all, Feng Xiao was the former great commander of the Steel Corps. His strength was at the 9th level of the star realm. Naturally, dealing with these ordinary dark shadow guards was a piece of cake. So powerful, he killed 2 people in one move. Even Leader Xiao Ba is no match for him. Who exactly is this old man? Seeing Feng Xiao suddenly go on a killing spree and kill several people in one go, the dark shadow guards beside him were shocked. They could not help but take a few steps back, as if they were intimidated by Feng Xiao's strength. Uncle Feng, well done. Kill all these traitorous bastards for me. Not far away, Chu Qian, who was also surrounded by several dark shadow guards, saw Feng Xiao's display of invincibility. Her eyes lit up. Then, her pretty face flushed red. There was also a hint of joy in her voice. Wei Wuyan, unless your dark shadow guards have the ability to step over this old man's corpse, don't even think about touching the young lady. Feng Xiao landed on the ground. In the next moment, he raised his eyes to look at the aggressive Wei Wuyan. His simple white robe was entwined with wisps of Yuan Qi. His face was still solemn and serious. It was obvious that he had made up his mind to die. Old dog, you only killed a few small fries. Do you really think you're so powerful? Today, I'm going to wash the princess' residence with blood. Seeing Feng Xiao's gaze, Wei Wuyan did not get angry. Instead, he laughed. In the next moment, his body shot out. At the same time, he raised his hand and punched at Feng Xiao's chest. Wisps of black flames appeared on his fist. It seemed to be an extraordinary martial art. Princess, you must live. Facing Wei Wuyan's violent attack, Feng Xiao took a deep look at Chu Qian, who was not far away. Then the Yuan Qi in his body surged and met the opponent's attack head-on. Just as Feng Xiao and Wei Wuyan were engaged in a fierce battle, on the other side, Chu Qian's situation was not optimistic. At the moment, she was surrounded by 5 or 6 dark shadow guards. For a moment, her pretty face flushed red and she was drenched in sweat. Even her dress was a little dirty and damaged because of the fierce battle. Damn it, these guys are very tacit in battle. Moreover, they attack and defend in an orderly manner. Although this princess has the advantage in Yuan Qi cultivation, if this drags on and exhausts my Yuan Qi, I will be defeated sooner or later. The fairy sword in her hand swept across the sky and instantly forced back the pincer attack of 2 dark shadow guards. In the next moment, Chu Qian's figure also landed behind with a serious expression on her pretty face. Her Yuan Qi cultivation was at the 5th level of the star realm. At the same time, the fairy sword in her hand was also a good spiritual treasure. However, it was still a little difficult for her to face the siege of 5 or 6 dark shadow guards. After all, her Yuan Qi was limited and she could not frequently use high-level martial arts. And these dark shadow guards in front of her were all elites under Chu Wen's command. They attacked and defended in a very tacit manner. If it was not for her overwhelming strength, it would be very difficult for her to easily kill these dark shadow guards like Feng Xiao had done earlier. In addition, these dark shadow guards in front of her seemed to have seen through Chu Qian's weakness. Therefore, they had been feigning attacks and harassing her, but they had never used their full strength. It was obvious that they wanted to completely exhaust Chu Qian's Yuan Qi before swarming her to end the battle. Princess, you should surrender. If you let go of your resistance and let us brothers have some fun, we might help you put in a good word in front of the chief soldier. Maybe we might even spare your life. Looking at Chu Qian, who was heavily surrounded, one of the dark shadow guards said with a sinister smile. At this moment, he could not help but reveal a trace of lust in his eyes as he looked at Chu Qian. It seemed that he felt that it would be a pity to kill Chu Qian like this. After all, with Chu Qian's beauty, she could be considered a peerless beauty. She was devastatingly beautiful and could be ranked in the top 3 of the beauty rankings in the entire imperial city. Chapter 243. In your dreams, you shameless fanatics. This princess will definitely kill you. Sensing the lewd gaze of the shadow guard, Chu Qian, who was surrounded, clenched her teeth and immediately flew into a rage. As the grand princess of the Dacha dynasty, she was loved by the emperor and had an extremely noble status. Moreover, she was a genius martial artist at the 5th level of the Star Realm. Naturally, she couldn't tolerate the humiliation of these shadow guards. Moreover, Chu Qian knew very well that with the brutality of these shadow guards, she would suffer a fate worse than death if she fell into their hands. There was a high chance that she would be tortured to death. Damn bastards! Thinking of this, Chu Qian's fighting spirit grew even stronger. She would rather die in battle than wait helplessly for death and become a plaything for the shadow guards in front of her. Heavenly Maiden scatters blossoms. The Heavenly Maiden's sword in her hand trembled slightly. In the next moment, Chu Qian also swung her sword diagonally. A large amount of majestic origin power instantly swept out and soared into the sky, turning into a piercingly cold sword chi storm that suddenly fell down with great momentum. Boom! Boom! A large amount of sword chi exploded out, and a large amount of yuan power shockwave forced the surrounding dark shadow guards to retreat. One of the unlucky dark shadow guards was torn apart by the sword chi storm and died on the spot with a blood-curdling scream. Blood splattered all over the ground. Damn it! You refused a toast only to drink a forfeit. Let's see how long you can last, little girl. Brothers, let's attack together. Seeing that Chu Qian didn't give in and even killed one of them with lightning speed, the surrounding shadow guards looked at each other viciously. Then, they looked at each other and once again joined forces to attack Chu Qian. For a moment, the atmosphere was anxious and the battle was intense. Bang! Just as Chu Qian was deep in the battle, Feng Xiao and Wei Wuyan's battle also reached its climax. Black flames surged in Wei Wuyan's palm, and in the next moment, his palm fiercely imprinted on Feng Xiao's stomach, sending her flying. Poochie! After being sent flying by Wei Wuyan's palm strike, Feng Xiao's face turned red. Then he spat out a mouthful of blood and crashed into the wall of the courtyard in a sorry state. The wall of the courtyard collapsed, and Feng Xiao's aura instantly withered to the bottom. Although Feng Xiao's origin power cultivation was at the 9th level of the Star Realm, he was too old after all. In addition, he had fought many battles when he was young, so he had some hidden injuries. Although he could delay Wei Wuyan's attacks for a while, he was no match for his opponent. After all, Wei Wuyan was the strongest general under Chu Wen's command, the commander of the Dark Shadow Guards, and a martial artist of the 10th level of the Star Realm. His strength was on the same level as the heads of the 3-9 ranks of the great families, and he was second only to Chu Tianyang, who was at the half-step martial mentor realm. Old man, you seem to have some internal injuries? Wei Wuyan's eyes turned slightly cold as he forced Feng Xiao to vomit blood with a palm strike. His tone involuntarily revealed a trace of ridicule. As early as the beginning of the fight, he had noticed that although Feng Xiao's strength was not weak, his origin power was insufficient and could not continuously launch powerful attacks. It was obvious that his dantian in his abdomen had suffered some injuries and could not fully mobilize his origin power. Otherwise, with Feng Xiao's origin power cultivation at the 9th level of the Star Realm, although he was no match for Wei Wuyan, he would not have lost so miserably and miserably. It's useless to say more, Wei Wuyan. Today, this old servant will kill all of you traitors and protect the dignity of a young lady and the great Chu royal family. In the face of Wei Wuyan's provocation, Feng Xiao ignored it and immediately struggled to get up from the ground. Then he took out a light green elixir from his sleeve and swallowed it. Although his wrinkled old face was a little pale and weak, his fighting spirit did not diminish. "You overestimate yourself, old man." Seeing Fang Xiao get up again, Wei Wuyan did not get angry. Instead, he laughed. In the next moment, his figure disappeared again as he charged toward Fang Xiao. Black poison hand. A trace of ruthlessness flashed across Wei Wuyan's eyes. Suddenly, his right hand became as black as ink. In the next moment, black flames surged in his palm. At the same time, strands of origin power swept out, and a palm strike smashed toward Fang Xiao's heart meridian. Whoosh! Boom! Black flames swept through the air as the palm strike struck. An ear-piercing sound suddenly rang out, as if to demonstrate the power of this palm strike. "Old man, you will die today without a doubt." With a crazed expression, Wei Wuyan laughed wildly at the sky. This black poison hand was a killing move taught to him by Chu Wan. Its power was comparable to a quasi-grade 5 martial art. Ordinary cultivators of the same level could not match it, let alone Fang Xiao, who was only a 9th level Star Realm cultivator and had hidden injuries. Not good. The black flame palm strike instantly arrived. At this moment, Fang Xiao could not dodge it. He could only cross his fists in front of his chest and circulate all his origin power to protect his heart meridian. It seemed that he was going to use all his strength to block Wei Wuyan's powerful palm strike. Bang! Poochie! Fists and feet collided and blood splattered. The black flame palm strike instantly broke through Fang Xiao's protective origin power and ruthlessly smashed into his heart meridian. Fang Xiao spat out another mouthful of blood. Then his entire body fell to the ground like a kite with a broken string, letting out a dull thud. Miss, Fang Xiao struggled to get up. At this moment, he was also severely injured. Half of his heart meridian had been pierced by the black flame palm strike. His flesh was badly mangled, and the remnants of origin power could be faintly seen. Although he did not die immediately, he was not far from death. "Old man, don't worry. The princess will accompany you soon. However, you have to let my brothers have enough fun first." Wei Wuyan leaped in front of Fang Xiao. In the next moment, another strand of origin power surged out of his palm. Then he chopped off Fang Xiao's head. Fang Xiao's voice came to an abrupt stop. Then his eyes suddenly widened. It was obvious that he died with a grievance. Uncle Fang. On the other side, Chu Qian, who was all alone, cried out in grief when she saw Fang Xiao die at Wei Wuyan's hands. Her pretty face was filled with resentment, and tears rolled down from the corners of her eyes. Now that even Fang Xiao, who was at the 9th level star stage, was dead, it meant that she was the only one left in the Princess Manor. She would no longer have any helpers and would be like strangers. Ha ha ha! Princess, now that this old man at the 9th level star stage is dead, no one can protect you. If you surrender obediently, we brothers will let you enjoy a wonderful feeling before you die. On the side, one of the shadow guards laughed heartily when he saw Wei Wuyan successfully kill Fang Xiao. His eyes were filled with lust as he looked at Chu Qian. At this moment, he was impudently sizing up her beautiful body. Due to the intense battle, the current Chu Qian had not only consumed a large amount of yuan power, but the robe on her body was also severely damaged, revealing her pure white hands and beautiful feet. Although her chest was not exposed, it was faintly discernible under the perspiration, which stimulated the primitive beastly nature of this group of dark shadow guards. If it was not for the fact that Chu Qian still had a little bit of energy left and that it would be dangerous to make a move rashly, these shadow guards would have already swarmed over and captured Chu Qian alive. "Princess, you are at the end of your rope." After dealing with Fang Xiao, Wei Wuyan turned around. His eyes were filled with playfulness and disdain as he looked at Chu Qian. Chapter 244. Take this girl down. With a wave of his hand, Wei Wuyan barked out another order. "Yes, sir." The dark shadow guards looked at each other. Then, They held their weapons and slowly approached Chu Qian in the courtyard. Their auras were fierce. Although the shadow guards had suffered several casualties after the fierce battle, there were still about 7 or 8 of them left. Therefore, they had no problem dealing with Chu Qian, a 5th-level Star Realm martial artist who was injured and had exhausted a lot of her origin energy. You, don't come over. Chu Qian panicked when she saw the shadow guards closing in on her. In the next moment, her delicate body went limp and she sat on the ground. Tears streaked across her egg-like face, and even the fairy sword in her hand fell to the ground. Father, Mother, which one of you can save me? At this moment, Chu Qian's heart was filled with sorrow. At the same time, she felt a deep sense of powerlessness and despair. She seemed to be able to foresee the tragic end she would face. She would become a plaything for the shadow guards to vent their bestial desires. Boom! Just as the shadow guards were about to close in on Chu Qian, a deafening explosion came from outside the princess manor. In the next moment, a black hidden weapon swept across the sky and smashed toward Wei Wuyan, who was in the center of the courtyard. It was extremely fast. Whoosh! Whoosh! In a breath's time, Wei Wuyan also reacted. He immediately pulled out the black dagger from his waist and slashed it down. In an instant, the hidden weapon that was attacking him was split into 2. At the same time, there was a tearing sound like cloth, and blood immediately flowed out. What? Looking at the spreading bloodstains on the ground, Wei Wuyan and the rest of the shadow guards narrowed their eyes. They saw that this black, hidden weapon was actually the corpse of a cultivator. Moreover, this person had a special identity. He was masked and dressed in black. Impressively, he was a member of the shadow guards. Where did this bastard come from? Wei Wuyan's gaze shifted. At this moment, he was also furious. He looked in the direction where the corpse had come from. Before he killed his way into the princess manor, he had set up some hidden sentries outside. Now it seemed that these sentries had all been killed. Trash. Wei Wuyan, you're the commander of the shadow guards and a martial artist of the 10th level of the Star Realm. How dare you bully a martial artist of a younger generation, especially the eldest princess? I don't know if you're shameless or audacious. As soon as Wei Wuyan's voice fell, a cold man's voice came from a distance. The next moment, Su Tianxing leaped out and slowly landed in front of Chu Qian. At the same time, a rare bitterness appeared on his stern face. Princess, I've made you suffer. You are the sect leader of the Qingyuan sect, Su Tianxing. Looking at Su Tianxing, who suddenly appeared in front of her, Chu Qian's pretty face was slightly stunned. Then, she cried out in surprise. Even the tears at the corner of her eyes could not help but stop. Obviously, she did not expect that the other party would appear to save her at the critical moment. That's me. Nodding slightly, Su Tianxing also raised his eyes to look at the headless corpse of Feng Xiao on the other side. Then he sighed. Although he had blocked the attack of the shadow guards, he was still a little late. Feng Xiao, the top expert beside Chu Qian, had already died in battle. Moreover, his death was very miserable. He had been decapitated by Wei Wuyan. As the sect leader of the Qingyuan sect, one of the 9 ranks of the great families, Su Tianxing knew a little about Feng Xiao. Feng Xiao was once the commander of the Steel Corps. In private, Su Tianxing and Feng Xiao were friends. However, today, they were separated forever. Su Tianxing did not even get to see Feng Xiao for the last time. It's you, Su Tianxing. Does your Qingyuan sect also want to go against Lord Jin? Are you not afraid that Lord Jin will be angry and eradicate your Qingyuan sect in one fell swoop? Seeing that it was Su Tianxing, Wei Wuyan narrowed his eyes and sneered. He did not seem to be afraid of Su Tianxing. After all, they were both at level 10 Star Realm. It would not be easy for Su Tianxing to defeat him. Moreover, after practicing the quasi-grade 5 martial art, Black Poisonous Hand, that Chu Wen had taught him, Wei Wuyan was very confident in his strength. He could fight anyone below the half-step martial master realm. Sorry, our Qingyuan sect has no intention of going against His Highness Lord Jin. However, we have been entrusted by someone. Today, I must take Princess Chu Qian away unharmed. In the face of Wei Wuyan's questioning, Su Tianxing shook his head. Then, wisps of majestic origin power gushed out from his body. An invisible and powerful aura also swept out. Immediately, the surrounding shadow guards were forced to retreat. They could not even take half a step forward. Su, who do you think you are? You want to save someone from me alone? Seeing that Su Tianxing was determined to intervene in this matter, Wei Wuyan, who was not far away, also snorted coldly. He also released a powerful aura, which immediately offset the powerful aura emitted from Su Tianxing's body. For a moment, it was as if they were evenly matched. So what if we join in? Just as Su Tianxing and Wei Wuyan were confronting each other, a few clear shouts suddenly came from the outside world. The next moment, Chu Jiuxing, Su Sun, and a few Qingyuan sect elders in martial robes appeared one after another. They then landed opposite Wei Wuyan and the others. Everyone had different expressions. Brother, her beautiful eyes were blurred. At a glance, she saw the tall Chu Jiuxing in the crowd. At this time, Chu Qian could no longer hold back the grievances and pain in her heart. She immediately rushed toward him and plunged into his arms. She instantly burst into tears. Brother, you're not dead yet. This is really great. I was so worried about you. I was so worried about father and mother. Woo, I thought I would never see you again. Chu Qian's delicate figure trembled slightly. She curled up in Chu Jiuxing's embrace, resembling a startled little deer. She no longer had the ferocious aura from before. It was as though she could only temporarily regain her original fragile nature before Chu Jiuxing. Good sister, it's okay. I'm not dead yet. Everything will be fine. As long as we're still alive, even if father and mother are sacrificed, the great Chu royal family will still rise again. Looking at the tearful Chu Qian in his arms, Chu Jiuxing's determined face revealed a trace of reluctance. He immediately reached out to gently wipe away the tears at the corner of her eyes and comforted her in a comforting tone. Princess, Crown Prince, the enemy is right in front of us. Let's deal with this group of traitors first. On the side, looking at the scene of Chu Jiuxing and Chu Qian reuniting after life and death, Su Sun's face also revealed a trace of emotion. In the next moment, she couldn't help but restrain her expression and remind them. After all, there was still Wei Wuyan, who was eyeing them covetously. As the commander of the Shadow Guards, a dignified 10th-level Star Realm martial artist, and a group of Shadow Guard assassins under him, he could be said to be a powerful enemy. Although they had saved Chu Qian in time, it didn't mean that the crisis had been resolved. The situation was still grim. Chapter 245. That's right. This person is the commander of the Shadow Guards under Chu Wen. He's very powerful and won't be easy to deal with. As soon as Su Sun finished speaking, Su Tianxing nodded and looked at Wei Wuyan with a serious gaze. Wei Wuyan's cultivation base was very powerful and had also reached the 10th level of the Star Realm. Even he, the sect master of the Qingyuan sect, did not dare to say that he could win against Wei Wuyan. Brother, I'll listen to you. Faced with Su Tianxing and Su Sun's reminder, Chu Qian also raised her hand to wipe away the tears at the corner of her eyes. Then, she looked at Chu Jiuxing with a solemn expression. It seemed that she had vented all the emotions in her heart and had calmed down. Although she was usually pampered and was the eldest princess, Chu Qian was very obedient in front of her brother Chu Jiuxing. She did not throw a tantrum as usual. After all, the imperial family was in chaos, and the imperial city was in turmoil. Chu Qian also knew that she could no longer do as she pleased. Leave the imperial city. Only then will our Chu clan have a chance to rise again. Chu Jiuxing gently helped Chu Qian up. In the next moment, he spoke with a solemn tone. Leave? Then what about father and mother? Hearing this, Chu Qian's pretty face was slightly stunned. Then, she exclaimed. However, Chu Jiuxing beside her shook his head helplessly as if he had made up his mind. Now that the rebel army had forced their way to the city, and the imperial palace had been occupied by the shadow guards under Chu Wan and the pavilion of Prince Tung. Chu Jiuxing knew very well that even if Chu Tianyang did not die in the end, they could not go back to save him. Moreover, as the emperor of Great Chu, Chu Tianyang was also determined to die. He planned to sacrifice himself to buy time for Chu Jiuxing and Chu Qian to escape from the imperial city. Otherwise, he would not have entrusted his life to Su Tianxing and the others and instructed them to protect the Chu siblings. Do you guys really think that I don't exist? Today with me, Wei Wuyan, here, none of you can leave the imperial city. All of you must die. Not far away, Wei Wuyan frowned slightly as he watched Chu Jiuxing and Chu Qian talking to each other. The next moment, he sneered as if he did not intend to let them leave this place easily. Shadow guards, listen to my order. Take these two people down. With a wave of his hand, Wei Wuyan gave the order. Kill. As soon as he finished speaking, a group of shadow guards also rushed towards Su Tianxing and the others. Suddenly, their battle cries shook the sky and their momentum was aggressive. Although they had lost a few people in the previous fierce battle, there were still a lot of shadow guards at this time. There were about a dozen of them. On Su Tianxing's side, in addition to Su Sun and Chu Jiuxing, there were only 2 older Qingyuan sect elders. They did not have the advantage in numbers. A bunch of ants. Su Sun coldly snorted when he saw the group of dark shadow guards surrounding him. His face was filled with disdain. In the next moment, he actually waved his fist to meet them head-on. The yuan power around his body undulated, and he was like a war god that had descended from the heavens, slaughtering the crowd in all directions. In just a few breaths of time, 1 or 2 shadow guards died tragically under Su Sun's fists. Their corpses were badly mutilated, and one of the shadow guard's entire head was blown apart by Su Sun. The scene was filled with the smell of blood. Although Su Sun is not the sect master's disciple, his fighting style is even more violent than the sect master's. A Qingyuan sect elder waved his sword to force back the siege of 2 shadow guards. After seeing Su Sun's fierce attacks in the crowd, he was immediately shocked and secretly smacked his lips. Good job, as expected of an opponent recognized by this crown prince. On the other side, Chu Jiuxing was also fighting with a few shadow guards. When he saw Su Sun's fierce attacks and killing several people in a row, he immediately laughed out loud. He seemed to be in a good mood, and even his aura had increased a lot at this moment. Although his strength was not weaker than Su Sun and was even a little stronger, Chu Qian had exhausted too much of her yuan power and temporarily lost her combat strength. Therefore, in addition to fighting the enemy, Chu Jiuxing had to pay attention to Chu Qian's safety at all times. Naturally, he could not fully display his strength when he was distracted. Otherwise, with Chu Jiuxing's yuan power cultivation of the 7th level star realm, it was more than enough to deal with these shadow guards. If Wei Wuyan, the commander, did not intervene, he alone could annihilate this group of shadow guards in front of him. Bastard, die for me. Wei Wuyan was furious as he watched his subordinates being killed one after another. In just a short while, more than half of his subordinates were dead or injured. His figure immediately shot out as he grabbed at Su Sun. Surging yuan power wrapped around his palm and instantly transformed into a wisp of powerful black flame. Whoosh! The black flames streaked across the sky, creating a sonic boom. Even the temperature of the surrounding air rose a lot, which was enough to show how powerful this attack was. Even if Su Sun's cultivation was at the 6th level of the star realm, she would be seriously injured if she didn't die from this attack. Bang! Just as the black flame was about to hit Su Sun's body, Su Tianxing, who had not moved for a long time, finally made his move. His figure teleported directly in front of Su Sun. Then, the yuan power around his body surged and instantly condensed into a pure white yuan power shield, blocking the black flame. Boom! The black flame fiercely hit the yuan power shield and immediately exploded in the next moment, causing a wave of air to wreak havoc. Although the remaining power was not weak, it did not hurt Su Sun at all. After a few breaths, it slowly dissipated and turned into a wisp of nothingness. Godfather, thank you. Looking at Su Tianxing, who was blocking in front of him, Su Sun was stunned. Then, he pursed his lips and said, although he was an orphan who was picked up by Su Tianxing and adopted as his son, Su Tianxing did not show much concern for him over the years. He had always been indifferent to him. Even his cultivation methods and martial arts were taught by the elders in the sect. Therefore, Su Sun once wondered if he had done something wrong to make Su Tianxing feel dissatisfied and indifferent to him. Su Sun, you have always worked hard. Even if you did not awaken the pure yang body, you will be the pride of our Qingyuan sect in the future. Don't belittle yourself, Su Tianxing said indifferently without turning his head. Although he had blocked the opponent's attack, he knew in his heart that it would not be easy to defeat the opponent. Yes, Godfather. Hearing this, Su Sun's pupils shrank slightly. Then, they suddenly brightened as he spoke. It seemed that the doubts that had been lingering in his heart all these years had finally dissipated, and his spirit had once again recovered to its peak. Wei Wuyan, your opponent is me. Su Tianxing's gaze was fixed on Wei Wuyan, who was not far away. The next moment, wisps of majestic yuan power gushed out from Su Tianxing's body, and a pure, white light flickered. As the sect master of Qingyuan sect, he naturally cultivated the quasi-fifth grade cultivation method, Qianyuan martial spiritual technique. Moreover, Su Tianxing's mastery of the Qianyuan martial spiritual technique was more skillful and powerful than Su Sun's. When he attacked with all his strength, even a half-step martial mentor expert could not break through his defense. It was as if it was indestructible. This bunch of bastards, looking at the shadow guards screaming and falling around him, as well as the imposing Su Tianxing in front of him, Wei Wuyan's eyes narrowed slightly. A cold expression appeared on his gloomy face. The situation had reversed, and it was already very unfavorable to him. If he continued to fight, it would obviously not be beneficial to him. Su Tianxing, and you guys from Qingyuan sect, I will remember this. All of you retreat. Thinking of this, Wei Wuyan also raised his hand and blasted out a stream of yuan power towards Su Tianxing. The next moment, he retreated, and, at the same time, he left a ruthless sentence and disappeared in a flash. Whoosh! Whoosh! Seeing this scene, the few surviving shadow guards in the courtyard also gave up fighting. They immediately turned into a few black shadows and fled in panic. Chapter 246. These guys actually ran away. They really can't take a beating. Seeing Wei Wuyan leading the remaining shadow guards to retreat, Su Sun also retracted the yuan power in her body and immediately spat. Now that the crisis had been resolved, Princess Chu Qian and Crown Prince Chu Jiuxing were safe and sound. Next, as long as they safely escorted the siblings out of the imperial city, it would be a great success, and they would not let down Emperor Chu Tianyang's life. Princess, Crown Prince, although Wei Wuyan has temporarily retreated, there are still many of his men in the imperial city. Moreover, the people of the pavilion of Prince Tang have also defected and joined the camp of King Jin, Chuan. The current situation is unclear. We should leave the city as soon as possible. After Wei Wuyan retreated, Su Tianxing secretly heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Then, he turned around to look at the Chu siblings behind him and said solemnly, after all, the other party was the dignified commander of the Shadow Guards, a martial artist at the 10th level of the Star Realm. After this failure, he would definitely not let it go easily. Next, the Chu siblings would still face serious danger. If they did not leave the Imperial City in time, the subsequent pursuers would definitely be endless. Moreover, the reason why Su Tianxing was able to force Wei Wuyan to retreat was largely because he had the advantage of numbers. After a fierce battle, many of his shadow guards under his command had been killed or injured. In addition, the two Qingyuan sect elders beside him, as well as Su Sun and Chu Jiuxing, were not weak. Because the chances of winning were not high and would only increase the casualties, Wei Wuyin chose to retreat temporarily. However, this did not mean that the other party would give up the pursuit. After all, the Chu siblings had a special identity. Wei Wuyin's master, the current King Jin, Chu Wan, was bound to kill the siblings. That's right, princess, crown prince, let's hurry out of the city. Otherwise, when the rebel army enters the imperial city, we won't be able to leave even if we want to. As soon as Su Tianqing finished speaking, a Qingyuan sect elder beside him also cupped his hands and said in a hurried tone, as if he was also aware of the critical situation at this time. Everyone, we siblings will remember today's kindness in our hearts. If there is a chance in the future, we will definitely repay it. Hearing this, Chu Jiuxing nodded heavily. Even the way he addressed himself had changed. After all, he was now the crown prince of a fallen country and no longer had his former glory and might. Moreover, among the 39 ranks of the great families of the Dacha dynasty, the pavilion of Prince Tang rebelled under the leadership of the king of Medicine Linfeng. The Lingjian school, under the control of Ren Jianlong, remained silent. Now, only Su Tianqing and the others from the Qingyuan sect were willing to help them. Chu Jiuxing was naturally grateful. I feel that you won't be able to leave the imperial city so easily. At this moment, a clear male voice sounded from afar, causing everyone's expression to change slightly. In the next moment, they all looked towards the other side of the courtyard where the voice came from. Who is it? Su Sun narrowed his eyes and shouted. Everyone, don't be nervous. We are on the same side. As the voice fell, a few black figures also quietly appeared. The next moment, they climbed over the wall and came to the front of everyone. The person in the lead had a delicate face and carried an extremely sharp green dragon halberd on his back. It was Fei Run. Fei Ren, why are you here too? Seeing that the person who came was Fei Run, Su Sun and Chu Jiuxing were slightly surprised, and then they exclaimed in a low voice. Since the finals of the World Hero competition were disrupted by Chu Wan, the entire central square was in a mess. All the participating geniuses and spectators fled in all directions. Naturally, no one noticed the movements of a mere rogue cultivator like Fei Ren. Even Su Sun and Chu Jiuxing were the same. Fei Ren, your strength has become stronger again. With her beautiful eyes, Chu Qian also immediately noticed the subtle changes in Fei Ren's body. Her red lips were slightly opened. One had to know that last time in the princess residence, Fei Ren's cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the Star Realm. Now, in less than half a month, his cultivation had broken through again and stepped into the 4th level of the Star Realm. With such a cultivation speed, it was not an exaggeration to call him a genius. Princess, you flatter me. But now is not the time to discuss this. We have to find a way to kill our way out of the city. Otherwise, when Chu Wan comes, we won't be able to leave. Fei Ren rubbed his nose and shook his head with a faint smile as he glanced at the astonished Chu Qian. Chu Wan's cultivation was at the 1st level of the martial master realm. His strength was unfathomable. Not to mention the people in front of him joining forces. Even 7 or 8 veteran experts like Su Tianqing would not be a match for him. Even Chu Tianyang, who had used the soul-burning secret technique, could only temporarily delay Chu Wan's attack. This was enough to show the strength of the other party. Brother Fei Run, these two are on the side. Su Tianqing also stepped forward and looked at the 2 black figures behind him at the same time. Previously, everyone's attention was all on Fei Ren. Now, everyone realized that there were 2 companions beside him, and their strength was not weak. They had both reached the high level of the Star Realm. Brother Chang, Brother Tianyun, introduce yourselves. Seeing Su Tianqing and the others looking at him, Fei Ren also grinned and then moved slightly to the side. The 2 black silhouettes behind him had simple auras. They were not very old and were dressed in sturdy armor. They were the Chang brothers of the Steel Corps, and were also one of Fei Ren's few friends in the Imperial City. Princess, Crown Prince, friends of the Qingyuan sect, my name is Chang Qingshan. This is my younger brother, Chang Tianyun. Both of us are from the Steel Corps. Chang Qingshan cupped his hands towards Su Tianqing and the others in front of him. His tone was solemn. "Princess, your highness the crown prince." Beside him, the red-haired Chang Tianyun also followed closely behind his brother. He also cupped his fists towards the Chu siblings in front of him. His slightly tanned face revealed a deep sense of self-blame. Now that the imperial city was besieged by the rebel army and the fate of Emperor Chu Tianyong was unknown, the two brothers, as soldiers of the Steel Corps loyal to the imperial court and the royal family, were also burning with anxiety. However, with just the strength of the two brothers, they were unable to turn the tide and could only go with the flow. "You're soldiers of the Steel Corps? Now that the imperial city is besieged and father is also in trouble, why is there no movement from the many soldiers of the Steel Corps as the imperial court's army?" Seeing that the Chang brothers in front of her were from the Steel Corps, Chu Qian frowned and questioned. "Princess, it's not that we disobeyed orders and did not move, but that the situation has changed. Without His Majesty's leadership, the Steel Corps is now without a leader, and the great commander Lu Ming has disappeared since the internal strife in the imperial city. Our soldiers have been bitterly defending for more than half a day, and we really can't resist the attack of the rebel army. Right now, the imperial city has been completely lost, and the rebel army has already killed their way into the city. This subordinate estimates that the entire imperial city will be occupied by them in less than 6 hours." Facing Chu Qian's question, Chang Qingshan also had his own bitterness that he could not say. He sighed with a heavy expression, as if he was blaming himself in his heart. The imperial city had been lost, and the rebel army had already entered the city. Hearing this, Su Tianxing and the others' faces froze. They were shocked. The rebel army's attack was even more fierce than they had imagined. Although the Steel Corps had many elite soldiers, the Iron Armor Army under King Jin Chu was not to be trifled with. With the help of a shadow squad and the pavilion of Tung Wang, it was indeed difficult to turn the tide with just the strength of the Steel Corps. Most importantly, the Steel Corps had not only lost Chu Tianyong's leadership, but their strongest commander, Lu Ming, had also gone missing, making it even harder for them to survive alone. "Brother Chang, as the fourth commander of the Steel Corps, I believe that you have done your best. The wounds on your body are proof." Seeing this scene, Farron also explained and shook his head. He was very clear about Chang Qingshan's loyalty to the imperial court and the imperial family. When the imperial city was besieged by the rebel army, the other party led his soldiers to fight to the death without retreating, and no less than 5 or 6 high-star realm martial artists died at his hands. However, no matter how brave the Chang brothers were, they were unable to stop the Steel Corps' defeat. In the end, the two of them were surrounded by hundreds of rebel soldiers. Fortunately, Farron happened to pass by and helped them. The two of them successfully escaped and followed him to the princess's residence. Chapter 247. I also believe that you two brothers have indeed done your best for the imperial court and the royal family. You don't have to blame yourselves too much. My sister was a little rude earlier. Please forgive her. Seeing this scene, Chu Jiuxing also sighed. Then, he stepped forward and gently pulled Chu Qian behind him, his tone sincere. Your Highness the Crown Prince is too serious. The two of us do not dare to accept it. Seeing Chu Jiuxing being so polite, Chang Qingshan was also flattered. He immediately knelt on one knee and cowed out. Commander Chang, now that the imperial city has been breached by the rebel army, how many men does your Steel Corps have left? Could it be that they have all been wiped out? Beside him, Su Sun, who had not spoken for a long time, suddenly took a step forward and said, compared to the others, he was more concerned about the matters of leaving the city. Now that the imperial city had been breached, the difficulty of escorting the Chu siblings out of the city had increased by a lot. Furthermore, they had to be wary of the pursuit of Wei Wuyin and his shadow squad. I'm not too sure. Other than the missing great commander Lu Ming, the other two commanders and I each led our soldiers to fight a bloody battle, guarding the various city gates of the imperial city. However, after holding on for half a day, We suffered heavy casualties and had no choice but to retreat in defeat. However, although the Steel Corps was not completely wiped out, it should be close. The east gate of the Imperial City that I was in charge of guarding was in a tragic situation. Other than the two of us, the rest of the captains and soldiers were all killed. No one was spared. In the end, if it wasn't for Brother Fei Ren's help, the two of us wouldn't have been able to come back alive to see you. Facing Su Sun's question, Chang Qingshan also nodded his head and explained with a solemn expression. At the same time, a trace of helplessness appeared in his eyes, as if he was recalling the scene of the battle with the rebel army at the east gate of the Imperial City. Other than that, do you have the whereabouts of the other two commanders? Hearing this, Su Tianxing also interjected. Second Commander Yang Qing and Third Commander Wang Xinqing can't be contacted. The surviving soldiers under them were forced into the inner city by the rebel army. The two of them haven't appeared for a long time, so there's a high chance that they died in battle. Shaking his head, Chang Qingshan sighed. They are all dead. With his brows furrowed, Su Tianxing's heart trembled. The ferocity of the rebel army's offensive was beyond his imagination. Even the four commanders of the Steel Corps were not spared and died tragically in the chaos. It was the same for Mount Evergreen. If not for Fei Ren, who happened to pass by and save them, Chang Qingshan and his younger brother Chang Tianyin would have died on the battlefield and sacrificed their lives for the country. Everyone, although the rebel army has already killed their way into the Imperial City, it is not as if we have no chance. I've already made my observations. Right now, the rebel army at the West Gate is the weakest among the four gates of the Imperial City. We can split up and use the other gates as bait to attract the enemy's pursuit. Finally, we can take the opportunity to kill our way out of the Imperial City. After wiping his fist, Fei Ren also expressed his opinion. Before he came to the princess's mansion, he had already planned his escape route. Originally, he did not want to intervene in this matter and wanted to escape alone. However, the Chang brothers insisted on coming to the princess's mansion to save Chu Qian, and Fei Ren had no choice but to follow. Now that the situation in the Imperial City was getting serious, Fei Ren could no longer stay out of it. He could only accept his fate. For the sake of Chu Tianyang, he helped the Chu siblings in front of him. As for whether the Chu siblings could successfully escape the Imperial City, it all depended on fate. Leave from the West Gate. There are a total of 4 gates in the Imperial City. Does this mean that we have to split up into 4? In the face of Fei Ren's proposal, Su Sun also crossed his arms and said with a slightly surprised expression. He did not care about how to kill his way out of the Imperial City. The only desire in his eyes was to fight. Otherwise, he would not support his adoptive father Su Tianxing and help the Chu siblings. That's not necessary. We just need to split up into 3. Shaking his head, Fei Ren immediately stretched out 3 fingers and grinned. Little brother Fei Ren, it seems that you already have a plan in mind. Seeing Fei Ren's confident look, Su Tianxing also spoke with a sigh. Previously in the World Heroes competition, Fei Ren's extraordinary performance also fell into his eyes. With the identity of a mere rogue cultivator, Fei Ren was able to defeat one of the 4 great geniuses of the Imperial City, Gu Qingmu from the pavilion of Prince Tung from the 9th ranks of the great families. This was also something that Su Tianxing never expected. Although he did not know the background of Fei Ren in front of him, this did not affect Su Tianxing's appreciation of Fei Ren. He always had a hunch in his heart that if Fei Ren did not die prematurely in the future, his achievements would definitely not be below Su Sun, who had a pure yang body, or even higher. We will split into 3 groups. Sect Master Su, you will lead 2 Qingyuan sect elders to the north gate of the Imperial City. That is one of the places where the rebel army's attack is the strongest. After you make your move, you can attract most of the firepower there. As for Su Sun, Brother Chang, and Brother Tianyin, the 3 of you will go to the east gate of the Imperial City. As far as I know, the east gate has just fallen not long ago. For the time being, there are no shadow guards and people from the pavilion of Princeton. If there's a conflict on your side, you can also share the pressure for us. In the end, the crown prince, princess, and I will go to the west gate and kill our way out of the imperial city in one go. With a solemn expression on his face, Fei Ren immediately opened his mouth to speak. Even though this was not a brilliant plan, it was the best plan that he could think of at the moment. If they wanted to safely escort the Chu siblings out of the imperial city, they had to come up with a brilliant plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Lure the tiger away from the mountain, combining the real and the false. Little brother Fei Ren, your plan is indeed worth a try. Hearing this, Su Tianxing also deeply agreed and nodded, as if he agreed with the other party's plan. As for the remaining Su Sun, the Chong brothers, and the others, they did not have any objections. They all tacitly agreed with Fei Ren's plan. Sectmaster, there's no time to lose. Let's hurry up and leave. Seeing that the plan had been set, one of the white-haired Qingyuan sect elders also urged. At this time, some time had passed since Wei Wuyin and the others were defeated. If they still stayed in the princess mansion and did not leave, the other party would very likely come back and cause endless trouble. All right, little brother Fei Ren, the princess and His Highness the Crown Prince will be in your hands. You must escort the two of them out of the city safely. After making the final decision, Su Tianxing finally glanced at Fei Ren in front of him and solemnly instructed. I will do my best. Please rest assured. Nodding slightly, Fei Ren calmly said. Outside the west gate of the imperial city, it was desolate and bleak. The spacious streets were also deserted. Only dozens of armored and armed soldiers could be seen patrolling back and forth. The atmosphere was solemn and stiff, and at the same time, there were faint gusts of cold wind whistling. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.